In a flash of crimson light, Audrey vanished, leaving Fry completely alone. What she did was supposed to be a warning, a desperate attempt to pull Fry out of the darkness and give him at least a glimpse of the hidden truths of the world he knew nothing about. But the result was the opposite. Her words didn't guide him, they shattered him. Agaroth kept me alive all this time because I'm the key to breaking his seal. And Odin, the most mysterious among the great ones, is actually a catastrophe on the same level as the Demon King. Fry whispered slowly, sinking down onto the cold stone floor beneath him. Audrey, what exactly am I supposed to do with this? Audrey's appearance, the way she spoke to him, the emotions reflected in her eyes, none of it belonged to someone meeting him for the first time. They belonged to someone who knew him deeply. Without noticing, Fry touched his own lips, replaying the moment as he struggled to make sense of it. Agaroth, Odin, himself, and Nameless. There was a connection between these names, a thread binding them all together, dragging them inevitably toward the same collision. I've only lived twice. Once as Fry Starlight, the life I live now, and once as a normal human who knew nothing about this world. So how does Audrey know me? What am I missing about myself? What am I? Exactly. Fry exhaled sharply, frustration and impatience tightening inside him. His hand moved on its own, pulling out the cold black mask and placing it over his face. Answer me, Nameless. The moment he spoke that name, Frey's consciousness fell into darkness. Down, into that familiar abyss where the campfire burned eternally. His other selves, fragments from different points of his life, sat around the fire as always. Fry ignored them and walked deeper into the darkness, toward the deepest corner of that void. His power had grown immensely since the fight with Whisker, and after absorbing Audrey's aura, his connection with Nameless strengthened enough to push past the fog that once blocked him. A few more steps. Then he stopped, and looked down with a cold expression. There he was, the monster feared by countless demons. Nameless sat on a simple chair, bare-chested, barefoot, head lowered. His long white hair mirrored Frey's exactly, and his face was hidden behind the black metal mask. Chains lay broken around him, proof he had freed himself long ago. Proof he could fight at any moment, take over Frey's body whenever he wished. And yet, he did nothing. He simply sat in silence, unmoving. Fry clenched his jaw. How long do you plan to sit there? How long will you keep refusing to move? He dropped to one knee, bringing himself to Nameless' eye level. Not that Nameless bothered to look up. Here, try taking my body again. I won't resist this time. Frey's voice was deep and calm. Too calm. If it's you, I'm sure you can handle everything. You're stronger than me. You understand this world. No one can manipulate you the way they manipulate me. So take it. Take my body. Do whatever you want with it. Just promise me one thing. Save a certain number of people. Keep them alive. A strained smile formed on Frey's lips. It's a good deal, right? It shouldn't be difficult for you. Silence. Nameless sat motionless. Then, slowly he raised his head, and his glowing violet eyes finally locked onto Fry. Fry felt a chill run down his spine. Then Nameless spoke a single word. No, that was it. One word. Frey's expression twisted with anger. No? What do you mean no? He tried to grab Nameless by the head, but an invisible force stopped him mid-movement. Still, Fry roared. You and your followers forced me to become your vessel. My life became hell because of you. And when I finally offer it to you refuse. Then tell me, what do you want? His voice echoed through the void, shaking its walls. Answer me, Nameless. And at last, Nameless moved. Slowly, deliberately. His voice was calm. Too calm. Don't know. Fry froze. What? Nameless lifted his hands, staring at them in confusion, fingers trembling slightly. His aura surged wild, unstable reminding Fry exactly who he was dealing with. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know why I'm here, or what my purpose is. The legendary king who felt nothing, The emotionless being who once viewed the world with perfect detachment, now clenched his fists, hard. Aura burst outward in a violent shockwave. I've never felt anything like this before. These emotions. For the first time in his existence, Nameless was feeling. And the strangest part? These emotions weren't his. They belonged to Fry Starlight. And somehow they were bleeding into Nameless. In other words, Nameless began to experience exactly what Fry felt. When you suffer, I suffer. When you grieve, your sorrow bleeds into me. Your joy, your pain, everything. Nameless spoke in a heavy tone before exhaling quietly. I never realized emotions could be this agonizing. So loud, so unbearable. They truly are. Curse. The word curse perfectly captured what Nameless saw in Frey's suffering. The essence of his human torment. You've been there, inside me all along. Fry finally understood. Nameless had been present from the very beginning, witnessing everything. The despair, the rage, the loss. He had lived through Frey's memories as if they were his own. Something changed within Nameless as a result. Frey's anguish, something the emotionless king had never known, awakened a foreign presence inside him. Possessing emotions made Nameless recall his own deeds. The bloodshed, the ruin, the countless lives he'd taken in his pursuit of knowledge and power. He was no hero, nor a just ruler. He was a monster, one responsible for more deaths than even the Demon King himself. Are you feeling guilt? Fry asked. Nameless fell silent for a moment before answering softly. I don't know. He couldn't name what he was feeling, but it was something that had no place in the heart of a being like him. Fry calmed himself, trying to understand. Earlier, you said you don't know why you exist within me. What did you mean by that? If this was meant to be Nameless resurrection, a process turning Fry into his vessel, then his ignorance didn't make sense. Fry suspected he was lying, but the mask had no reason to deceive him. I don't know what Gehrman is trying to achieve, or what his true goal is. My current memories are limited to what lies inside the mask. That's why my existence itself is incomplete. Those words made Frey's eyes widen. He'd almost forgotten something crucial. The unresolved puzzle. The missing fragments of the self. Long ago, the system gave him a quest to find 3 relics meant to restore his true self. The mask, the weapon, and the armor. So far, he only possessed one. Could it be? Your existence is incomplete because I haven't found the other pieces yet? Nameless didn't respond immediately. If Fry only held the mask, then Nameless consciousness would naturally be bound to it. It all made sense now. The dual soul had reawakened when Fry obtained the mask back in Launder. That meant Nameless truly didn't know what Gehrman was plotting, because his awareness extended only to what the mask contained. For now, only Gehrman knows the full truth. The truth about you, and about me. Those words pulled Fry back to square one. He chuckled bitterly. How pathetic. Nameless, you're just as miserable as I am. Even the legendary king, the being feared by gods and demons alike, knew nothing. Ignorance was the only thing they shared. Power meant nothing when one didn't understand their own existence. Nameless might still possess vast strength, but he was only a shadow of his former self. I have no intention of taking your body, or sharing in this suffering. I have no desire to drown in these emotions. His words carried a quiet meaning. The deeper Frey's emotions grew, the stronger their connection became. That was what happened during their battle with Zebar. When Nameless took over Frey's body, their bond had reached its limit. Back then, something had begun to shift. Instead of Fry becoming Nameless, it felt as though Nameless himself was slowly becoming like Fry. At that moment, the copies of Fry standing around the campfire turned their eyes toward Nameless, all glowing with that same dark violet hue. They watched him silently, their gazes heavy and endless, as if trying to pull him into themselves. The masked king, for once, looked almost weary, as if he had been fighting not a war of strength, but a war of existence. Realizing this, Fry exhaled in resignation. Ha! My life's so miserable that even a being like you wants to run away from it. That's actually hilarious. He laughed softly. First I'm told I have to fight the Demon King. And now there's another enemy on his level who could appear any moment. Nameless looked up, his tone calm but grave. You can't defeat Agaroth. Not yet. Even with my power, it won't be enough. He spoke as if remembering a distant past. Agaroth is unique. His power knows no limits. Even if you trap him, he'll continue to grow stronger during battle. He evolves infinitely, until he wins. That's how I lost to him. Nameless paused, his violet eyes dim. Agaroth's strength lies in evolution. Mine lies in adaptation. The ability inside you, once it reaches its peak, will let you adapt to any phenomenon you face. Much like Agaroth himself. In the distant past, during their final confrontation, the clash between Agaroth and Nameless had become a cataclysm. At first, the Demon King had the advantage. But Nameless adapted to every ability Agaroth possessed, surpassing him completely. Then, Agaroth evolved again, overtaking him once more. The cycle repeated again and again. Agaroth would overpower him once, then Nameless the next. Back and forth endlessly, until the Demon King ascended to a level Nameless could no longer match. And the battle finally ended. That was the moment Agaroth created a technique unlike any other. The strongest strike ever conceived. One that even Nameless could not defend against. In other words, their battle had been nothing less than a direct clash between Agaroth's world-breaking ability, the power of a monster who devoured all things, and the shadow adaptation that belonged to Nameless. Naturally, the advantage went to Agaroth. To defeat Agaroth, you need a second decisive factor alongside shadow adaptation. That was Nameless' conclusion. Fry didn't reply. He simply fell silent. That decisive factor. Nameless was clearly referring to Fry himself, the chosen vessel. Perhaps this was exactly what German had been aiming for from the start. The Demon King possesses many abilities. You can study them later. But Odin is a different case entirely. I don't know much about him. For the first time, a hint of intrigue appeared in Nameless' voice as he spoke of the enigmatic ancient being. He existed long before me, before all of us. His echo reached me eventually, and I spoke with him once. It happened after I killed one of the Great Ones. Frey's focus sharpened immediately. Odin was a being no one could reach, a presence only the Great Ones could hear. Yet somehow Nameless had spoken to him. It happened ages ago, when Nameless wiped out countless lives on a distant world while conducting his experiments on life and death. In response, the Great One of that planet descended to stop him. And the two clashed in a cataclysm that drenched the world in death. Nameless had been overwhelmingly powerful then, and he naturally emerged victorious. But after the battle ended, something strange occurred. I suddenly found myself standing in a white world, pure white, blindingly bright. And he was there, shapeless, formless, nothing but glowing eyes staring back at me. Odin had lost his physical body long ago. He could no longer interfere with the material world at all. It was this fact that had disappointed Agaroth in the distant past when he sought him out. For the Demon King, too, could not destroy something that did not physically exist. All Odin could do was whisper fragments of his will across existence. One of those whispers was his encounter with Nameless. He didn't say much, only spoke of life and death, of how to manipulate both, of the lords of life and death who shaped the world as mortals know it, and of a thin veil that hides the real truth from all living beings. Then, at the end of their brief meeting, Odin said something strange. Your color has grown dim, compared to the Demon King. Those were his final words before he vanished once more. Nameless lowered his gaze slightly. I don't know much about him, but he's certainly not a being to ignore. No one knows the nature of his power, but there are scattered rumors. Fry listened with a deepening scowl. They say he cannot die. It is said that he has existed since the dawn of time, and that no being is older than him, and that no being is older. They say, he is the one who created Aura itself. Hearing that, Frey's expression darkened even further. And I'm supposed to fight something like that? He let out a humorless, bitter laugh. Nameless remained silent. It felt, in that moment, as though the two of them, Fry Starlight and the legendary Nameless, shared the same destiny. A bleak, merciless destiny. Fry Starlight's POV. Is this really Nameless? That was the only question in my mind as I stood before him within this dark void realm that existed inside me. The figure in front of me felt like a manifestation, a construct born from endless fragments of combat arts, supernatural abilities, and overwhelming power. A being built from zero, from the infinite information stored inside the mask. A monster without a true self, without personality, without identity. And yet, that monster had somehow been affected by my experiences. My pain, my struggles, my emotions. All of it had fused into him, reshaping the empty template he once was. The man before me looked nothing more than an ordinary figure wearing a black steel mask. But that image was a lie. The real Nameless. The terrifying king whose ancient images and fragmented visions I had once seen, was nothing like this. He was a relentless beast wrapped in human flesh, a creature who slaughtered entire races to reach his goals, a calamity that even demons feared. What stood before me was only a shadow, a flawed fragment. It was obvious. I still lacked two pieces of the self-puzzle. I had obtained the mask, but not the weapon nor the armor. Without them, Nameless would remain incomplete, stuck in this half-existence, struggling to understand feelings he was never meant to have. I tried asking him why he was obsessed with the law of life and death, how he obtained his cosmic abilities, why he could see the future, why he spent his entire existence trying to defy mortality. Was it because of what Odin told him? Unlikely. Nameless' obsession started long before that ancient encounter. But Nameless gave me no answers, because he didn't have them. Not in this incomplete state. You really are trapped in darkness just as much as I am, I muttered. Who would have imagined a king like you ending up this? Pitiful? The truth was ugly. Just like me, Nameless was a pawn trapped in German's scheme. And trapped in the schemes of others we still didn't know about. I'm stuck in this situation, and so are you, I said. And yet you want to step aside? Is that truly what you want? I tried one last time, hoping he would take over my body again. Even incomplete, Nameless was much stronger than I could ever be right now. But he rejected me again. I have no desire to take your body, he said quietly. Your roots have sunk too deeply into me. His voice was cold, steady. Yet I understood the hidden meaning. Nameless was like a blank page tainted with the ink of my miserable life. He feared that diving deeper would turn him into me, that he would not absorb me, but become like me. Fine. So I'm on my own again? I exhaled in annoyance. For now, I pushed aside the issues of Audrey, Agaroth, and Odin. I could do nothing about them. I neither had the power nor the knowledge. What matters now is what's happening here on Earth.
Veisker was my enemy.
And saving the people important to me came first. Ada. Her name slipped from my lips as I made my decision. Ada and Carmen. Both their names were still glowing red in the system interface. I had wasted enough time. While thinking that, Nameless finally raised his head again. His violet eyes glowed with that same deep, oppressive radiance. I will help you, he said. I froze. What did you just say? He didn't repeat himself. He knew I heard him. You'll help me? Save Ada? He answered simply, that's right. Why? I felt a strange, heavy warmth in my chest. Nameless, the monster even demons feared, was offering to help. A ridiculous turn of events. It felt almost unreal. Nameless didn't answer immediately. Then finally, I'm tired of watching you lose to demons, he said. Even while you carry a piece of my power. He rose from his simple chair. I won't take your body, but I can guide you, teach you how to fight the right way. For a moment, I lost the ability to speak. Nameless was offering aid, because he didn't want to see me suffer anymore. Me. The pathetic human he used to treat as nothing but a vessel. I almost laughed. Then it hit me. That absurd, almost childish realization. Nameless had been affected by my memories, my experiences, and my emotions. He felt my pain. He didn't want Ada to suffer. He didn't want me to break. It was naive. It was stupid. But I knew it was true. And I needed his help. Then let's go, I said firmly. We're saving Ada. Nameless nodded. A moment later, the void shattered around me, and I opened my eyes in the real world again. A deep violet glow burst from my pupils, the same color Nameless wielded. I was still inside the shadow sect. Other than Audrey's projection, I hadn't encountered anyone yet. They would surely notice my disappearance soon. So I moved immediately, without greeting anyone. There would be time to talk later. Right now, Ada was waiting, but at the very least I had a rough idea of where she was. She was still inside the Empire. Far away, behind its walls. Reaching that place would take time, but for once, I wasn't worried. My spatial manipulation allows me to appear anywhere in this world. You can't do the same yet, not with your current level. But teleporting into the Empire and back out again won't be difficult for you. Nameless voice echoed calmly inside my mind. So this was what he meant when he said he would help. To be honest, talking to him like this felt strange. Uncomfortable even. But I had no choice but to get used to it if I wanted to take full advantage of his guidance. Then let's go. I prepared myself to teleport straight into the Empire and see the situation with my own eyes. But a familiar aura stopped me. Someone I knew was close, leaving so quickly after waking up, without even saying a word. From the shadows, a familiar figure stepped out, following me from the temple. Snow Lionheart, the friend whose light balanced my darkness. I'm sorry, I said, but I have to go. There's someone I must save, no matter what it costs. It's your sister, isn't it? Snow replied immediately, confirming he understood everything already. I nodded. So, you're just going to leave? Walk out and abandon everything behind you? His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in a quiet, pained disappointment. I knew the situation well. Humanity was scattered. The war was spiraling into the unknown. Our enemy was the fourth upper demon. We barely had enough strength left to stand, let alone win. But even so, what do you expect me to do? Stay here and act like a leader? Leave my sister on the other side until she dies far away from me? I gave him an empty smile, refusing even to entertain the thought. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I'm neither a leader nor a hero. To me, Ada's life alone outweighs every human here. If I have to choose, then I'm sorry, but I made that choice long ago. That was the truth. Ada would always be the most important person to me. She was my only remaining family. The one person who carried a piece of my old world. And my new one. She was the hidden anchor that kept me sane. Losing her was something I would never be able to endure. So I would go save her. Or die trying. Seeing my resolve, Snow let out a quiet, bitter laugh as he lowered his gaze. You've always been this type of bastard, Fry. I'm not surprised you're willing to abandon all of us for your sister. It's just who you are. He stepped toward me. For a moment I wondered, would he try to stop me? If he did, things would get complicated. His strength had grown so much he could fight me evenly now. I was ready to draw my sword, but I stopped at the last second. There was no hostility, no killing intent, no aura. Snow simply walked toward me calmly, hands empty. What was he planning? I got my answer the moment he reached me. His fist clenched, and he punched me straight in the face. Clean, brutal blow from nowhere. I flew several meters back, the heat of the impact burning across my right cheek. And that was just a physical punch. No aura. Nothing supernatural. Even so, it hurt like hell. I hit the ground on my back, staring up at the sky. Snow stepped forward again, stopping beside me. Fry, everything you've suffered through has carved deep scars inside you. You always try to solve everything alone, without even noticing it. And I can't help but curse your selfishness for that. He calmly sat beside me with a frustrated sigh. Who said I would stop you, you idiot? I just wanted to help. My eyes widened slightly as understanding clicked. I turned to look at him. Why didn't you ask me to come with you? If the two of us go together, our chances will increase. And we'll be able to return alive. Together. So that was what troubled Snow. He never meant to stop me. He only wanted to go with me. To help me save Ada. Looking back, it was obvious. We had fought side by side for so long that he could predict my thoughts before I formed them. Of course he knew I would go after Ada. Of course he wanted to come and help. But I failed to see that, blinded by my twisted nature. That cursed instinct to rely only on myself, shaped by everything I lived through. Life taught me one thing. In the end, I only had my own strength. No matter how many allies stood around me, I always ended up alone. That was Fry Starlight's reality since the day I opened my eyes in this world. But Snow was different. He was the one person who stood beside me. Through everything. Even against Weskier. He was different. Slowly, I pushed myself up into a sitting position beside him. I'm sorry. It seems the shadows of my past still dig too deep into me. I gave him a strained smile. From now on, I'll try to change that way of thinking. But I'm going to be selfish one more time. And ask you to let me go alone. Just this once. I stood again, giving him the decision he didn't want. Your presence here is necessary. For our friends, for the survivors. You're the only one whose strength I can rely on completely if something happens. The Shadow Sect wasn't fully trustworthy. Human forces were too weak. Snow was the only one I could trust with this responsibility. Stay. Led them. Keep them alive. Snow looked up at me, his jaw tightening. Our enemy is too strong, Fry. You won't be able to win alone. Snow wasn't convinced by my words. He knew too well how strong our enemies were. But in that moment, I could only offer him a faint smile. Don't worry. I'm not alone this time. As soon as those words left my mouth, Snow froze for a heartbeat. A purple shadow flickered behind me for an instant. The silhouette of a man wearing a black metal mask. A presence so regal and oppressive it belonged only to kings. I'll come back no matter what it costs. Until then, I'm leaving everything in your hands. A surge of deep violet aura swept through my body as I prepared to teleport. Snow let out another troubled sigh, still unconvinced. But when he saw my resolve, he didn't try to stop me anymore. Make sure you save your sister and return alive. We'll be waiting for you. I nodded, and in the next moment, I vanished from the Shadow Sect, leaving him and the others behind. Snow remained standing there for a while, staring at the spot where I disappeared. Then, slowly, he turned toward one of the dark corners. Are you really planning to hide until the end without saying anything? Sansa. His expression was blank, voice cold. From the corner he pointed at, the darkness thickened. And after only a few seconds, Sansa emerged from nothingness, fully in her demonic form. He's gone. It's too late to tell him anything now. Snow said, and Sansa gently shook her head. It's fine. I wouldn't be of any help to him. Not with my current strength. Snow didn't deny it. Sansa's demonic power was indeed strong, but still far below his and far below Frey's. Even so, Snow was certain of one thing. Sansa could influence Fry emotionally far more than he ever could, which made her existence important, critically so. He knew you were here. His senses are far sharper than mine. If Snow had noticed her, then Fry had definitely sensed her from the very beginning. He simply chose to ignore her until the end. I know that very well, Sansa replied, her expression empty as she tightened her fist. One day, I'll be able to approach him the way you did. Not today, but someday. I definitely will. Snow didn't answer. He only let out a quiet laugh. Unlike Snow, Sansa hesitated, because she was weak, unable to be of use to Fry the way he was. But she made a vow to herself, to become strong enough to stand beside Fry one day. Strong enough to fight with him. strong enough to reach him like Snow did today, instead of hiding in the shadows, incapable of doing anything. She understood perfectly what she needed. Power. Nothing else. Realizing this, Snow chuckled softly before turning away. The two of you really are alike. Fry Starlight's POV. In the blink of an eye, my feet landed on Imperial soil once more. I was standing in the Starlight region. But it was nothing like I remembered. Flames. Ruins. Destruction everywhere my eyes turned. It seems a massive battle took place here. Judging by the aftermath alone, it was clear that something catastrophic had unfolded. I wondered for a moment what kind of monsters had clashed with such force. But I had no time to waste. My goal was to find Ada, nothing else. So I rushed deeper into the region. Spread your aura and be ready to fight at any moment. There is a powerful enemy close by. Nameless voice echoed unexpectedly. I knew this level of destruction wouldn't come from an ordinary battle. But the fact that Nameless himself acknowledged the strength of whoever caused it only fueled my concern. Could it be one of the 10 upper demons? That was my first thought. They were the strongest, after all. Nameless heard my thoughts clearly, but he didn't respond. He stayed silent, because he already knew I was wrong. The one responsible for this devastation wasn't a demon. It was a human. He could tell just from the lingering traces of aura. Something I couldn't do. And from that alone, a specific idea flashed in his mind about the identity of the culprit. But he chose not to tell me. Unaware of all that, I continued pushing deeper into the region, hoping Ada was safe. Fry Starlight's POV. Some time had passed since I first set foot on Imperial soil. A few hours, to be exact. To be honest, ever since I reincarnated into Fry Starlight's body, I hadn't explored the Empire much at all. My memories here were almost non-existent. Most of my life had been spent either inside the temple or within the Nightmare Lands. So stepping through these streets now felt like walking into entirely new territory for the first time. Everywhere I went, I saw humans desperately trying to survive. Fragile people with no way to defend themselves. Their enemies were mindless corpses, puppets controlled by the power of the 13th upper demon, Geppetto. Alongside those corpses were true demons as well. Gray-skinned creatures with long horns and hollow eyes. Primitive demons. They were strong by the standards of ordinary humans, who stood no chance against such monsters. But in front of me, they were nothing but trivial obstacles. Slash! From time to time, under the wing of darkness, a violent purple radiance cracked through the night, shaking the entire region. Moments later, the corpses and demons were reduced to shredded pieces scattered across the ground. The fleeing humans always stopped, stunned, unable to comprehend what was happening, trying to figure out the identity of their savior. But I was gone before they could gather their thoughts. I didn't have the time to lead them or guide them to safety. They had to survive on their own. You pretend you're leaving them to fend for themselves. Yet you're the one who just saved them. Nameless voice echoed in my mind, contradicting my thoughts. I merely ran into them by chance. It's not like I came here to rescue them. I answered briefly, but Nameless replied again. So human lives mean little to you? Or is that just what you keep trying to convince yourself of? What is that supposed to mean? Nameless took several long seconds before answering. His deep, cold voice cutting through my skull. Killing those corpses will alert the one controlling them that something is wrong on this front. In other words, you've raised the chance of the enemy discovering your presence. Geppetto's ability granted him full awareness of every corpse he reanimated. If even one of them fell, he would sense it immediately. Nameless had told me earlier not to fight until we found Ada, yet I ignored him and slaughtered every demon I encountered. Your actions may very well jeopardize your sister's rescue. You disobeyed my instructions. From this point onward, you will fight exactly as I command. No objections. His last words carried an authority that irritated me instantly. And what kind of command are you talking about? I asked, genuinely curious, only for Nameless to reply with something that made my expression twist. From now on, you are forbidden from using your regular aura. You may only fight using black hole aura. I heard him clearly, and I froze in place the moment he finished. Are you serious? I can't use black hole aura indefinitely. It burns too fast. Then you will adapt. It is the only weapon you have against stronger demons, since the advanced phases of shadow adaptation remain locked. Starting now, you are forbidden from using dark aura or shadow aura. Only the black hole. He reaffirmed his order, and I fell silent. Black hole aura burned through my energy far faster than any normal aura. 50 times faster, at least. If I relied on it alone, I wouldn't even last a single hour, even with my SSS rank aura reserves. What the hell was Nameless thinking? No matter how I looked at it, it made no sense. But I had no choice. If I wanted his help later on, I had to follow his orders now. Slowly, the purple aura around me faded, replaced by a star-dark radiance, the aura of the black hole. Immediately, my strength multiplied several times over, but the pressure on my body intensified just as much. Without being in dark ascension, which granted my body the output of SSS rank, enduring the black hole's power was taxing. My normal state was only SS after all. Forget saving Ada. I won't even be able to find her while moving under this strain. Black hole aura was supposed to be my trump card. Something I used only for my strongest enemies, not for constant movement. That mindset is exactly why you cannot grow beyond your limits. The mindset of the defeated. Nameless voice echoed coldly within me, and in the blink of an eye, I was dragged back into the dark void inside my consciousness. There, in the deepest part of my inner world, Nameless stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his glowing violet eyes burning behind the mask. At my peak, I could use black hole aura endlessly, forever if necessary. Do you know why? It was a question worth thinking about. Because your damn aura reserves were infinite? That was the only answer that came to mind. And clearly not one Nameless appreciated. There is no such thing as an infinite aura reserve, unless someone possessed a world-breaking ability capable of granting one. Though I've never seen such a case before, my aura reserves were never the highest. In fact, I wasn't even in the top 10 when it came to capacity. Nameless spoke while manipulating a small flame of aura above his fist. The Demon King Agaroth, for example, possessed an aura pool many times larger than mine. Yet he was the one being drained faster during our fight. Despite Nameless having far less aura than Agaroth, the Demon King burned through his power much more quickly. The key is control. Around Nameless, a circle began to form, its circular border glowing as waves of aura rippled outward. They resembled the surface of a raging ocean, churning endlessly, reshaping themselves again and again. The waves never calmed, no matter how long they rotated. If anything, they grew more violent. Agaroth surpassed me in raw aura capacity, but I surpassed him by far in manipulation and control. By fully understanding the value of your aura and controlling it perfectly, you can reduce your aura consumption to almost nothing. Before my eyes, a breathtaking scene unfolded. Nameless was burning aura at a terrifying rate, rapidly draining his reserves. Yet those reserves refilled almost instantly, as if he had never used any aura at all. That was the purpose of the strange circle around him. The aura leaving Nameless' body was immediately reabsorbed from the air and the void around him, allowing him to reuse it indefinitely. In other words, every time Nameless launched an attack, he secretly reabsorbed its power, pulling it back into himself. At first glance, it seemed simple, but it was anything but simple. It was something utterly impossible for anyone else. It felt as if Nameless had absolute dominion over all the aura around him. He forced it to circulate in a perfect loop, meaning it would always exist and never disperse. And that was how he fought endlessly. If Nameless' aura pool was 1,000, and his enemies was 10,000, after a long battle the enemy would eventually fall to 0, while Nameless would still have his full 1,000. Incredible. The word slipped from my mouth without thought. What I had witnessed was beyond extraordinary. How did he even create something like this? And more importantly, how was I supposed to learn it? You can use it too, Fry Starlight. Aura naturally gravitates toward you, exactly as it does toward me. Reading my thoughts, Nameless dismissed my worries. Learning it won't be impossible for you, as long as you try with everything you have. Hearing that, I stayed quiet for a moment before nodding firmly. What Nameless had shown me wasn't just a technique. It was a reminder that even in his incomplete, fragmented state, the being standing before me was still the warrior who once shook the heavens themselves. With a monster like this beside me, I finally felt capable of altering my fate against my enemies. Following his instructions, I continued traveling through the Empire using nothing but black hole aura, pushing myself to learn his strange method of manipulation, engraving it into my mind. My journey across the Empire pushed on, seeking Ada. The further I walked, the more enemy hordes I encountered. Among them, I fought several upper demons who appeared before me. The rank 32 upper demon Valak, the rank 28 Dantalion, and many others. Valak wielded shadows, while Dantalion possessed a bizarre ability that allowed him to manipulate and dominate minds. I slaughtered them with ease, especially now that I fought with black hole aura at all times. To be honest, it was torture trying to maintain control over the black hole's power. But Nameless' method was working, even if only a little. Right now, I was burning through enormous amounts of aura, yet I could restore about 30% of it using his technique. It was laughably small compared to Nameless, who could reclaim 99% of what he released. But as a beginning, I was satisfied, because it meant that, unconsciously, I was already growing stronger. As a unique anomaly, there was no reliable way to measure my power correctly. On paper, I was SS rank. But when unleashing my abilities and weapons, I reached SSS rank, even if I didn't know my exact place within that rank. Snow Lionheart was similar in that regard, because he was the second coming of the pure vessel, while I was the vessel of Nameless. These factors allowed us to transcend our peers and shatter the balance of power entirely. My strength kept rising, but none of it helped me find Ada or Carmen, and that infuriated me. During my wanderings through the burning empire, I encountered many survivors. From them, I learned that the heroes of the old generation had returned, gathering and protecting a massive number of humans. Among them, my predecessor Nova Starlight had rescued many members of the Starlight family, including those who had been with Ada and Carmen. But my sister wasn't among the survivors. Her name and Carmen's still appeared in red within my system interface. So where the hell were they? I was starting to lose my nerves and whatever calm I had left, the longer this dragged on. But Nameless kept suppressing me every time, reminding me that anger would do nothing for me now. He had been emotionless once, which allowed him to always make the best decisions regardless of the situation, even if he was now stained by a portion of my own emotions. At this point, I was genuinely starting to wonder what could have happened. Could Ada be in Weskir's hands right now? Was that why he mentioned her when Snow and I fought him? But the more I thought about it, the less likely it seemed. Weskir had been in the Ultra's continent the entire time, and I had never once sensed Ada being attacked by a demon. I was always prepared to rush to her the moment anything happened. But my battle against Weskir might have delayed my reaction. Still, what exactly happened? While I was drowning in these questions, Nameless' voice echoed, giving me a crucial hint. The one who attacked Ada Starlight was not a demon, but a human. The moment I heard those words, my eyes widened, and I stopped running aimlessly. A human? Who would do something like this? Someone from the Ultras? Or a human from the Empire? A human who harbored hatred toward my sister Ada, or toward Carmen? Standing amidst the ruins of one of the Empire's destroyed cities, a realization struck me so suddenly that it snapped everything into place. And in the blink of an eye, my body flared with violet light, preparing for spatial teleportation. I found it. Leaving a trail of stardust behind me, I vanished from the shattered city and reappeared somewhere entirely different. A familiar place, one I hadn't visited in a very long time. The moment I appeared before its gate, I found myself quietly staring at the place that had been destroyed by countless ultras and demon attacks. The temple, its walls were the same. Everything was the same, and yet it felt emptier than ever. A hollow land of ghosts. Slowly, step by step, I walked inside. Along the way, I passed countless familiar places. The study halls, the training fields, and the elite residence where I had lived for 2 years. Under the wing of night, rain began to fall, darkening the desolate land ahead of me even further. I never imagined I'd come back to this place. Like this, I exhaled with a bitter chuckle as a faint smirk formed on my face. Seeing all these familiar scenes stirred memories. But I didn't allow myself to linger in them. The present mattered far more. I continued forward, descending the staircase leading somewhere entirely different. The underground prison beneath the temple. The place I had once been thrown into, when I tried to kill myself and destroy everything. My footsteps were the only sound echoing through the silent halls. But I wasn't alone, because I already knew. The ones I sought were definitely here, and after only a few more seconds, I reached my destination. Before me appeared the last person I ever expected to be the culprit. Deep in the temple's depths, sitting before a massive iron door, he was waiting. His hair was pure white. Even sitting down, he looked tall, much taller than me. He wore a long white robe and round reading glasses, still clinging to the identity of a church that had fallen long ago. His black eyes stared directly into mine. Before he gave me a gentle smile. "You finally made it. Fry Starlight." "You, Micah Starlight." I spoke his name quietly. I had never seen his face in person, but I already knew who he was, not to mention the clear resemblance to his mother. Carmen's son. This was the only child Carmen ever bore in her lifetime. That fact alone was the one thing preventing me from tearing his head off his shoulders on the spot. "Where are they?" I asked, losing patience. He seemed to have been waiting for that exact question, because a small smile appeared as he pushed open the door behind him. "Right this way." Micah gestured inward as I walked forward with heavy steps. "Be careful." I sensed a strange power on the other side. "I know." Nameless warning echoed through my mind, but I already understood what he was referring to. Micah was nothing more than a weak SS rank fighter. Yet something about this place felt completely wrong. The ominous aura I sensed here wasn't a joke. Slowly, my eyes began to glow with a violent light. Once I confirmed Ada and Carmen's condition, I would obliterate this place, and everyone inside it. I had already made up my mind. Blood would be spilled tonight, without question, somewhere across the continent of the Ultras. Within one of its darkest, most desolate corners, peculiar gathering took place. A procession of demons and prominent Ultras figures assembled, all standing in formation behind Weskier, who remained at the front. Beside him, rank 13 Geppetto stood alongside Beatrice and many other notable names. "He's here." With his usual poisonous smile, Weskier gazed toward the horizon. Only moments before a colossal dark pillar descended from the heavens, shaking the land with violent force. That beam of darkness struck with immense speed and overwhelming power. Its arrival unleashed a tidal wave of aura so intense it battered the land itself. Whoever approached simply didn't bother hiding their presence. From within the veil of darkness, a demon stepped forward, moving toward Weskier, who welcomed him with the same sinister smile. It was a familiar demon. For horns, a deformed face, sunken violet eyes, and a cloak of black aura trailing behind him. But this time, he wore a terrifying black armor that covered most of his body, making him appear even more imposing and unstoppable. The moment he arrived, almost everyone present bowed. Everyone except Weskier showing their respect. "We welcome the 10th seat, the one-man army, Zebar." As expected, this was Zebar of rank 10. But this time, it wasn't a clone. It was the real deal Zebar in his true physical body, clad in the legendary Katarina armor. The difference was staggering. The air around him grew heavier under the crushing weight of his true aura. His presence was nothing like Weskir's. While the fourth seat was stronger, Weskir tended to conceal his aura. Zebar, on the other hand, let everything spill out freely. Took you long enough, Zebar. Was the situation up there really that troublesome? Weskir asked, hiding mockery beneath his words. Zebar responded calmly, unbothered by Weskir's tone. You know well how complicated things are right now. My presence is crucial within the army. I can't stay away for long. He clenched his fist, his sharp eyes narrowing at Weskir. Let's end this quickly. The war against the Great Ones has already begun. His voice carried an urgency, urging Weskir to hasten their operations on Earth. For while they spoke, the first seat Crimson, along with rank 2 Aegers and rank 5 Marvas, had already clashed with a faction of the Great Ones, accompanied by contingents from other dominant races like the Pantheon. The mysterious land that had manifested in the vastness of the universe had drawn the attention of every apex creature in existence. Each was now attempting to claim it, uncover its secrets, and seize its power. Zebar, with his ability Reincarnation Spirit, was a critical general capable of fielding entire armies made from his clones. No need to worry. I intend to finish this very soon. Weskir closed his eyes for a moment, and then opened the king's eye alone. His strongest ability had returned, after the cooldown he incurred when he used it against Fry and Snow. It was safe to say the fourth seat had recovered most of his full strength. Weskir had fought Fry and Snow and defeated them both. Then he fought a deer from the Shadow Sect and beat him as well. And yet he sustained no injuries, aside from the king's eye entering its rest period. That fact alone showed the terrifying gap between rank 4 and the rest. And now, rank 10 had arrived as well. But that wasn't all. While Zebar spoke with Weskir, and while everyone bowed around them, it felt as though only those two had the right to stand here. Even Geppetto looked insignificant before them. That's what Zebar believed, until his eyes widened in shock. He suddenly felt an aura pure, overwhelming, that intertwined with his own, and crushed it, an aura radiant and flamboyant, the opposite of his own darkness. Zebar instantly raised his fist, turning toward the source, ready to fight. But Weskir stopped him, signaling there was no need. At that moment, a certain man stepped into the area. A man wearing a simple black robe thrown over an old, battered black armor. His hair was long and black. His eyes were hollow and dark. His condition looked ragged. But the pressure he exuded was no joke. Watching the man approach, not toward Weskir, but directly toward Geppetto, Zebar realized he wasn't an enemy. But he couldn't help staring in disbelief. Where did you find this monster? Zebar asked, honestly shocked, while Weskir laughed softly, amused by his reaction. Incredible, isn't it? This is Abraham Starlight, Fry Starlight's father, the man I fought years ago. Hearing this, Zebar quickly began connecting the dots. He knew Weskir had struggled against a human long ago, but deep down he had never truly believed it. To him, no human could ever threaten the upper 10. Zebar always assumed the real opponent who injured Weskir back then was the Shadow Sect warrior, the engineer, Gehrman. But seeing Abraham with his own eyes shattered that belief completely. This man, he's stronger than me, Zebar admitted. He then turned toward Geppetto, who was already laughing, unable to contain himself. You're telling me this monster fell into Geppetto's hands? Weskir nodded. That's right. Zebar's expression darkened. If Geppetto used that body, he could fight the upper ranks and claim a top seat for himself. Weskir clearly sensed Zebar's thoughts and placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. No need to worry. Amon won't allow it, even if he tries. Weskir's final words were spoken through a thin layer of aura, meant for Zebar's ears alone. The moment Amon's name was mentioned, Zebar said nothing more. He knew those words were true. Amon, the 11th seat, the nightmare host. He was only rank 11. Yet his name carried a weight that made even demons wary. The reason was simple. Remembering the masked demon, Zebarside, Amon, the demon known as the Joker, was anything but normal. Though ranked 11th, the number didn't reflect his true strength. The real reason he stayed at 11 was because he personally tested anyone attempting to break into the top 10. Amon would not let anyone without proper qualifications advance. Because of that, the upper 10 had remained unchanged for countless years. Amon stayed at 11, but his true power was unknown to most, especially since he too shared an ability with Agaroth. Just like the others. Speaking of Amon, he'll be coming to Earth soon as well. And with that, we will end this conflict once and for all. Weskier nodded, the plan confirmed once more. From this point onward, the extermination of the Shadow Sect and the remnants of Nameless will begin. Our mission is to kill them all, especially St. Germain, and retrieve Fry Starlight to bring him back with us to Helmand. Weskier spoke, repeating the objective of the coming assault. A full-scale strike meant to annihilate their enemies. Zebar fully agreed with the plan, for it would put an end to the conflict on Earth once and for all. We will attack Fry Starlight with our full strength. When he collapses, the Shadow Sect will have no choice but to move in order to save him. If we destroy them all, German himself will be forced to come out. And that will be the end of him. Weskier, the 4th seat. Zebar, the 10th. The resurrected monster. Abraham Starlight. The corpse manipulator. Thanatos. Geppetto. The coming raid was destined to be catastrophic. Their target was Fry, and anyone standing behind him. Let us begin, then, the extermination. With the 4th seat's command, that pack of monsters launched themselves toward Fry, who was still searching for his sister on the other side of the world. Back on the Empire's side, Fry Starlight had reached the temple, the place he had spent so many years within. There, he found a most unexpected figure awaiting him. Micah Starlight, Carmen's long-lost son who had vanished from sight for a very long time. Following him, the two of them descended into the deepest depths of the temple. There, they reached a vast chamber that resembled an arena, separated from their side by a wide glass wall. The moment they arrived, Fry stopped dead in place, because he finally found what he had been searching for. Inside the arena, 2 women were lying unconscious at its center. The first was a young woman in her early 20s, Ada Starlight, and the other was none other than Carmen Starlight. Both were asleep. Neither bore a single wound or visible harm. Seeing them, Fry froze for a moment before taking a step forward, ready to rush toward them. But Micah, standing at his side, immediately stopped him. If I were you, I wouldn't take a single step closer, Fry Starlight. Hearing that, Fry halted, not because Micah stopped him, but because Nameless had warned him of something strange. Slowly turning toward Micah, Frey's eyes glowed with a terrifying light as killing intent seeped into the air. What did you do? He asked in a cold tone, stabbing into Micah like daggers. Without realizing it, Micah took a step back, sweat dripping down his face under the crushing killing intent. He forced himself to maintain a smile, though he was barely holding himself together before the man who had already slaughtered hundreds of thousands. He knew well that the person standing before him could kill him in the blink of an eye, without even noticing he had done it. So he tried to remain steady, barely. Meanwhile, Fry was trying to understand the current situation. Ada and Carmen looked unharmed, yet both their names were glowing red inside his system interface, which meant only one thing: something was wrong, and he intended to learn the truth from Micah. The latter exhaled, and his body began to faintly radiate aura, only for a destructive surge of dark, stellar aura to crush him instantly, imprisoning him from every direction. Micah froze in place, surrounded by the vibrations of black hole aura only millimeters from his skin. Choose your next move carefully. It may very well be your last. Fry warned with fading patience. Micah clenched his fist. You really are a monster, just as they described you, he answered before letting out a short laugh. At that moment, his aura swelled, forming a strange construct behind his back. The construct grew and grew until it shaped itself into a giant black scale with two pans. On each side, a cluster of aura hovered. One small and weak, the other large and powerful. Each cluster was connected by threads of energy to a particular person. The small cluster's threads extended toward Ada, the large one connected to Carmen. Upon seeing that, Frey's expression darkened instantly. What does this mean? Hearing that, Micah's smile widened even further. How about we play a little game, Lord Starlight? He stepped forward slowly and cautiously, the scale floating behind him in the air. A game where we gamble with people's souls. He pointed toward the other side of the glass wall. Look there. Do you know what lies on the other side? Your sister, along with a filthy whore who doesn't deserve to live. He said, his words dripping with hatred, especially the last part. As you can see, I've tied the souls of both Ada Starlight and Carmen to this device. The scale. It's a marvelous tool. It allowed us to create this entire performance. Micah shouted, voice rising, while Frey's expression continued to darken. What in hell are you babbling about? And no, Fry Starlight, I wouldn't recommend attacking me now. Things will not end in a way that pleases you. Micah spoke quickly, realizing Fry was seconds away from ripping him apart. As I mentioned, this scale allows me to bind souls to it and pass judgment upon them accurately and fairly. That arena behind the glass has become a courtroom. The defendants are Carmen Starlight and Ada Starlight. The trial will only end once one of them is condemned. The guilty one will die, and the winner will live. Simple, isn't it? Micah said with a deranged laugh before explaining the rules in detail. The moment I summon them, both Ada and Carmen will wake up, and the trial begins. They'll have to fight each other inside that arena. The one who wins survives and the loser dies, just as I said. Of course, if an outsider steps into the arena, the trial is cancelled and the scale kills them both instantly. And if the holder of the scale dies, they both die as well. So I'm sorry, Fry, you can't kill me. Not yet. The more Micah spoke, the darker Frey's eyes became. Inside his mind, Fry had already killed Micah dozens of times. But he didn't dare underestimate what Micah had said. Micah, realizing he was still in one piece, grew more confident and continued spewing his madness. Let's gamble, Fry. Let's bet on who walks out alive from the trial. Your sister. Or my mother. Micah shouted with manic joy, provoking Fry even further. Why in hell would you do something like this? To your mother and your own family? Fry couldn't understand. Where had Micah even come from with a tool like that? Micah had been laughing in hysteria, but he quieted down the moment he heard Frey's question. Why, you ask? Why would I do this to my mother? He paused, and a filthy grin spread across his face. Why wouldn't I? Micah's expression twisted into something far uglier. Why wouldn't I try to kill that whore? The world would be a much better place without her. That's all she deserves. Death, and nothing else. He screamed with madness again, letting his repressed emotions erupt. That woman was nothing but a vile person. She threw her own son away the first chance she got. She abandoned me and left me to rot my entire childhood. I grew up alone, trying to survive inside the Starlight family. And when I finally grew up and searched for her, because she was my mother, do you know what she told me the first time I found her after all those years? She said I was nothing but a mistake. Just an accident from a meaningless fling. Ha! Yes. I'm the son of the great Carmen Starlight who spreads her legs for anyone. Micah burst completely, a lifetime of hatred pouring out at once. That whore loved Abraham, your father, but of course the great Abraham would never love trash like her. So he ignored her. And because of that, the woman jumped from one man to another, chasing after her own desires, leaving her son to rot, without caring what became of him. My existence was nothing but a reminder of one of her many mistakes. Micah was about to continue, but Fry silenced him with a crushing wave of pressure. I'm not interested in your hatred or your filth. I want to know why you dragged my sister into your pathetic revenge. Even with the suffocating pressure, Micah stood without fear this time. Why? You're seriously asking why? That wretched woman abandoned her son for years. And then what? She started caring for you and your sister, protecting you as if you two were her real children. What do you expect me to think when I see that? Huh. Hearing this, Fry recalled every time Carmen had helped him throughout his life, calling it a debt she wanted to repay to his father. Carmen had always been there. She saved him countless times during his weakest days. Without her, he would have died long ago. She was like an older sister in Frey's eyes. But to Micah, it was as if his mother simply replaced him with the children of the man she loved. That whore is obsessed with Abraham, obsessed to the point she tried to take his children after failing to take him. That pathetic obsession is what created the pile of filth lying there. That woman deserves nothing but death. And here, right now, I'll show you her true nature. Ah! With a wave of his hand, a surge of aura struck the arena, awakening both Ada and Carmen instantly by some arcane mechanism. Above their heads, a strange timer appeared as an artificial voice echoed, 5 minutes before execution. Micah clenched his fist, laughing as his pent-up emotions spilled out. They have 5 minutes to fight. If neither of them dies before the timer ends, they both get executed. Now, Fry, watch carefully as this whore shows her true colors. I'm betting that, with those filthy hands of hers, she'll butcher your sister. Why? Because she's a selfish creature who loves only herself. Micah was utterly convinced. To him, a woman who didn't love her own son could never love anything else. What do you say, Fry? Micah screamed, delighting in tormenting him. Fry remained frozen, his fists clenched so tightly they bled. Inside his consciousness, he connected to his masked ally. Nameless, is there any way to cancel this damn thing? He asked in fury. Nameless fell silent for a few seconds, before responding. That is impossible, because this is not a normal tool a human could ever get his hands on. Nameless answered, having begun to understand something crucial. Meanwhile, Micah's grin widened as he sank deeper into his thoughts. You can't cancel it, Fry, because you don't know who gave it to me in the first place. I spent years inside the church seeking a way to take revenge, but they gave me nothing. It was the demon Weskier who did. This is a tool from an upper demon. You can't disable it or destroy it. Micah stared toward Fry, then toward Carmen. You have no idea how deep a trap you walked into. Carmen is far stronger than Ada, so she'll naturally be the one to survive. And once she kills your sister, you will kill her immediately afterward. At that point, I don't care if you kill me too, as long as I prove to you, and to the world, that this woman is nothing but a selfish whore who only thinks of herself. Once that's proven, and once I watch you kill her with your own hands, the son she valued more than her real son, then I will die happily. He laughed, having prepared this scenario long in advance. But that won't be the end of your suffering. Once you kill everyone here, your real battle begins against the demons already heading toward this place. Your torment has no end, Fry. Your fight hasn't even started yet. As Micah's smile twisted deeper, he shouted once more. Now! What is your bet, Fry? The trial has begun. At the same time, Ada and Carmen stood up, staring at the glowing timer. Both immediately understood what was happening through the artifact. And now they had no choice left but to fight. Ada glanced toward the glass wall that hid Micah and Fry for a moment, then turned toward Carmen. The latter stared back with an expression void of emotion. Carmen. Ada whispered the name of the woman who had helped her for so long in her life. Carmen clenched her fist, then walked toward Ada with heavy steps. The game was cruel, and this was only the beginning. Carmen. Ada whispered, her voice trembling as she spoke the name of the woman who had lived by her side for so long, protecting her, guiding her, helping her through everything. Carmen, the elder sister to both Ada and Fry Starlight. The moment Ada and Carmen awoke, the countdown had already begun. The trial would not stop now unless one of them died. Those were the rules Micah himself had set. Whether Ada or Carmen, both fully understood the situation. The balance had transmitted the necessary information straight into their minds the instant they opened their eyes. They knew that Micah, Carmen's own son, was the one responsible for everything happening to them. He had been waiting for the perfect moment. When the demonic assault on the Empire began, he struck Carmen with a surprise attack that inflicted severe damage, causing her to lose the fight that followed. Both Carmen and Micah were SS rank. Under normal conditions, Carmen would never have lost to him in a fair fight. But Micah knew that well, which was why he chose the one moment she would be at her weakest. As for Ada, she wasn't a fighter to begin with. Bringing her down afterward was effortless. Slowly, tears gathered at the corners of Ada's eyes as she grasped the cruelty of their situation. Either she dies or Carmen does. It was brutal. Too brutal. Carmen was part of their family. Losing her like this was something Ada could never accept. From the very beginning, Ada refused to fight the woman who had supported her for so many years. But Carmen's expression showed something Ada hadn't expected. Carmen seemed completely ready to spill blood. "Carmen, what are you trying to do right now?" Ada asked cautiously as Carmen approached her, step by slow step. "We have no choice, Ada. One of us has to die." "No," Ada shouted, stumbling back several steps. "I refuse to submit to this cursed device and I refuse to fight you, Carmen," she said firmly, glancing at the timer. 1 full minute had already passed. Carmen forced a thin, cold smile. "You're misunderstanding something, Ada. You can't fight me, and you can't fight that device, because you're simply too weak." Her tone was heavy, and utterly unlike her usual reckless yet caring nature. "I could kill you from where I'm standing, and I'm not even in the Empire's top 10. That is how weak you are as the head of a family." Ada bit her lip. She knew what Carmen had done in her past. How she abandoned her own son. How she lived a filthy life away from everyone. How she even killed her son's father before he ever learned she was pregnant with him. Carmen had done terrible things. Unforgivable things. But that never changed Ada's feelings toward her. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is how they choose to live afterward. Carmen had been Ada's guardian and mentor, and that alone was enough for Ada to cling to her with everything she had. "Whatever happens, I will not fight you," Ada repeated, as if trying to solidify her resolve. Carmen's smile widened. "So if I'm not the one dying, will you die instead, Ada?" she pressed. "Will you kill yourself to save me?" She stepped closer with every word. "Will you throw away your life, everything you've lived for? Will you leave Fry behind and die far away from him?" Ada's gaze sharpened. "No, I don't intend to die, and I won't let you die either. No one is dying tonight. Sweet Ada, you know that's not how the world works. Not in the world we live in. The rules were absolute. No one could break them." But Ada wasn't joking. She wanted to defy everything for what she believed was right. From inside her arms, Ada took out a strange device she had kept for a very long time, a tool given to her by that man. He had told her clearly, "Use it only when it feels like your world has completely collapsed, when everything is truly over." This moment did not perfectly match that description. But Ada desperately needed the power to shatter the cursed balance that held her and Carmen hostage. The device was a cylindrical trigger. No one knew what it did. No one knew what it was capable of. But Ada believed in it, believed it wasn't something ordinary. So without hesitation, with absolute resolve, she pulled the trigger, the tool that could only be used once. Her final trump card, her last resort, was unleashed just like that. That alone showed how much she loved Carmen. Enough to gamble everything she had for her sake. Ada wagered their lives on the engineer's device. The moment she pulled the trigger, the tool shone brightly, releasing a strange wave of aura that made everyone flinch for a moment. There was no doubt. This trigger contained something frightening, something monstrous. Even Fry himself felt the shock of that bizarre aura. Hope surged in Ada's chest as the device glowed brighter and brighter. But then, in the end, something impossible happened. The glow vanished. The aura disappeared. The device simply went dead. Like nothing had ever happened. The trial's timer continued ticking. Everyone was back to where they started. Ada froze, her breath hitching. Huh? She didn't understand. Was it broken? Did it malfunction? What went wrong? Ada Carmen murmured after witnessing what Ada had attempted. What are you trying to do? Are you really relying on something you don't even understand to escape the situation you're trapped in? Disappointment flickered across Carmen's face. She didn't know what the device was either, but she knew Ada had gotten it from some unknown source. A tool meant to do something, sometime, in some situation. Everything about it was random and unpredictable. Ada had gambled blindly, and as a result, the device refused to respond, leaving them exactly where they were. Time remaining, 3 minutes. The countdown kept falling second by second. They had only 3 minutes left to make their choice, or both of them would die. At that moment, it felt as though Carmen had already made her decision, unlike Ada, whose composure slowly crumbled after her final trump card had failed her. Why isn't it working? She had been told to use that device only when all hope was lost, when her world truly collapsed. And yet, in the end, the device refused to respond, as if it were telling her, this is not the place, and this is not the moment. I was made for something else entirely. But what did that matter now, when Ada might die here? From afar, both Micah and Fry watched the scene unfold, each with entirely different emotions. Micah seemed delighted, especially when he saw Carmen preparing herself to kill Ada. Everything he had prepared for was falling into place so perfectly it felt like a dream. I'll admit that strange wave of aura worried me for a moment, but Ada Starlight is still as weak as ever. She cannot change anything. Slowly, Micah turned toward Fry. And now, Fry, watch with your own eyes. See the true colors of the whore you trusted so deeply. He provoked Fry further, but was instantly silenced as Fry released his aura, forcing Micah to his knees under the crushing pressure. Fry placed a finger over his lips, signaling Micah to remain quiet with an expression so terrifying it shook Micah's very soul. Choose your next words wisely. You only have 3 minutes left to live. Fry made it clear he would kill him the moment the trial ended. He would have killed him right now if not for the rule stating that Carmen and Ada would die the moment the wielder of the balance died. That single condition was the only thing keeping Micah alive. Fry was furious because of it. Rage boiling inside him, Fry spoke sharply in his mind. Nameless, you once stood at the top of the world. Damn it. Are you telling me you can't stop this cursed device? Nameless answered coldly, expressionless as always. Not in my current state. I can't tamper with the laws of life and death. Had the balance been activated on you or on me, I could have reversed it. But on Carmen and Ada? Impossible. The balance belonged to Weskier. It carried an overwhelmingly absolute ability. Once activated, with all conditions met, it reached its peak power. And unfortunately for Fry, everything was already in place. If only he had arrived earlier, before Micah completed the setup. If only he could have somehow made himself the target of the balance instead of Carmen or Ada. If only. But nothing in Frey's life had ever gone according to his will, not even with Nameless beside him. All he could do now was stand there and watch, forced to accept another bitter reality. Once again, I'll have to stand here and watch the people I care about die right in front of me. He spat the words out in fury. Meanwhile, even with his face crushed into the floor by Frey's aura, Micah was grinning madly as he watched his mother approach Ada. Now, you damned whore, kill her. End it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Show the whole world your true colors. Those colors. The ones that would dig her grave. Micah was utterly convinced of Carmen's nature. Selfish. Heartless. Living only for herself. That was what he believed with every fiber of his being. His thoughts were shaped by years of pain, years of abandonment, years of hatred so deep it twisted him into something unrecognizable. To him, his entire life was proof. Carmen Starlight lived only for herself. Fry saw it clearly, and once again cursed the world for its twisted way of turning everything against him. Watch closely, Micah Starlight. This will be the last thing you ever see. Frey's voice was low and cold. Micah sensed Frey's fury, but something was off. Where was the despair? Where was the madness? Ada was about to die, and Fry loved his sister more than anything. Losing her should have broken him completely, but he remained calm. Angry, yes. Disgusted, yes. But composed. Why? Micah didn't know. His attention returned to the trial, where Carmen now stood face to face with Ada. The older woman and the young girl stared at each other in silence. Second after long second, until only 1 minute remained on the timer. Then Carmen finally spoke. Ada, look at me. Look at yourself. Look at the situation we're in. She placed her hand gently on Ada's head, stroking it. This world we live in is ruled by strength. Nothing else matters. No matter your skill or intelligence. You will achieve nothing without power. That is the lesson life taught me. If Ada were powerful like the other family heads, Micah would never have caught her. If Ada were as strong as her brother Fry, this situation would never have happened. No one will always be there to protect you, Ada. You must rely on yourself, on your own strength. You will have allies, and that's good. You will have enemies, and that's only natural. You will suffer again and again, but remember this, Ada. Your strength alone will decide everything. Cast away your weakness, open your eyes to the world. Because you don't have much time left. Carmen spoke softly. Then a faint, gentle smile curved her lips. As for me, my time is far shorter than yours. Haha, I'm truly sorry, Ada. I'm sorry. And in that moment, Ada realized something. See, Carmen, what are you? But it was already too late. In the blink of an eye, Carmen's arm ignited with brilliant light, and an explosion tore through the arena as blood splattered everywhere. Ada was too slow to react, but Fry and Micah saw it all clearly. Carmen had plunged her hand into her own chest, driving it deep, destroying her own heart. Blood gushed across Ada's face and body as Carmen collapsed to the ground, crimson pouring rapidly and staining everything. For a moment, Ada stood frozen before Carmen's dying body. A sharp gasp escaped her lips. Huh? A faint gasp slipped out, one that revealed her complete inability to grasp what had just happened. Then the countdown stopped. The trial had ended, announcing only one truth. Carmen Starlight had been the one executed. By her own choice. No, Carmen, why for me, why? Ada collapsed over Carmen's lifeless body, her scream filling the entire chamber. A scream soaked in grief and unbearable pain. For the first time, Ada tasted a fraction of Frey's suffering. The agony of watching someone die for your sake. Carmen had died so Ada could continue living, but Ada knew she would never live normally again. The weight of that sacrificed soul would cling to her forever. Fry understood that more than anyone. From the beginning, he had never feared for Ada's life. Not even once. He knew Carmen would never harm her. Carmen loved them both deeply, and she had been ready to die for them long ago. Fry never lost trust in her, not even after learning what she had done to her son. Still, her death carved itself deep into him. Not as deeply as it carved itself into Ada. But Carmen mattered. She was family, and that was why the rage inside him surged like a storm. On the other side, Micah remained frozen, unable to believe what he had seen. The selfish whore he had despised for so many years had just sacrificed her life. For someone else. She, of all people, died for another? That simple truth shattered something inside him. No, don't play with me. You bastards. Get up, you damn whore. Wake up. You. Out of everyone. You die for someone else. Don't mess with me. He rose in fury, aura bursting violently and shattering the glass barrier separating them from Ada and Carmen. Nothing he saw pleased him. Nothing made sense. He lunged toward Ada and the corpse in her arms. But he never grasped how pathetic he looked. The moment he took a single step, his body stiffened, and a tidal wave of stellar dark aura swallowed him whole, dragging him upward into the air. In the blink of an eye, he found himself dangling in Frey's hand. Fry held him effortlessly with one arm. I told you, didn't I? I told you you would die very soon. In that moment, Fry no longer looked human. He looked like a reaper preparing to harvest another miserable soul. His strength was overwhelming, so overwhelming that Micah couldn't even twitch. Meanwhile, Ada finally noticed her brother's presence after he revealed himself. Fry, seeing him standing there, stained with tears and Carmen's blood, she realized he had witnessed everything. And that realization only made her breaking heart ache harder. She hadn't wanted him to feel this pain, yet she forced him to experience it again. Then, something impossible happened. Fry. It was Carmen's voice. Carmen, lying on the ground with her chest torn open, holding onto the final threads of consciousness. She looked straight at Fry, at the boy holding her only son by the throat, the son who embodied her greatest regret, her unforgivable sin. She had given that boy nothing but despair, pain, hatred. She knew that. She accepted it. She did not apologize. But with the very last breath she owned, she directed her voice toward Fry. Please let him live. Those were her final words. Carmen's last wish was simply that her son be allowed to live. He had made countless mistakes, but she at least wanted him to survive, not die because of her. So she begged Fry in her final moment. Fry listened to her clearly. He knew it was the last thing he would ever hear from Carmen, the woman who had stood with him for years, who had protected him repeatedly. He stared at her for a heartbeat. Then he turned back to Micah. No, that was his only answer. Cold. Absolute. Before Micah could even breathe, Fry crushed his skull, turning his head into pulp right in front of the mother who died at the same time. Slowly, Fry dropped the corpse to the ground. Silence consumed the chamber. The only sound left was Ada's muffled sobbing. Fry turned toward his sister, his expression hollow. I can't believe I'm starting to get used to this. His voice was nearly mechanical, lifeless. After so many crashes of despair, grief, trauma, loss, Fry had become numb. Carmen's death hurt him, but it was just another scar added to a mountain of wounds. At this point, even pain had lost its meaning. He looked at Ada. She looked back. Neither of them knew what to say. Neither knew what to do. The suffocating pressure of the moment crushed Frey's chest, crushed his mind, crushed everything. His face shifted. Blankness, sorrow, grief. And then, shock. His eyes widened. His mouth opened. His foot slammed on the floor, as nameless warning exploded in his mind. In the next instant, Fry vanished at lightspeed. He reappeared right in front of Ada, grabbing her, shielding her with his entire body. He pulled her into a tight embrace. Ada blinked, confused, unable to understand why. But then, boom! In a flash, everything turned white. A deafening explosion swallowed the world around them, erasing the temple entirely in a single devastating strike. That day, in that moment, the temple was annihilated. A single overwhelming attack had targeted Frey's position, and that attack marked the beginning of the war. The temple was erased. An entire land, once a miniature city in itself, a place where Fry Starlight spent years of his life since his reincarnation, was suddenly flattened, wiped clean from existence with a single strike. A tremendous explosion lit up the night sky, announcing the beginning of a new horror. The radiance of the blast lingered for several long seconds before slowly fading, revealing a colossal heap of ruins, the shattered remains of the temple's many buildings and facilities now strewn across the land. Among the debris, a massive chunk of rubble was hurled aside as a certain figure slowly rose to his feet. It was Fry. Beneath him lay Ada, whom he had shielded with his own body, a back now carved by a massive bloody gash, scorched and shredded by the blast. But his body immediately began to regenerate on its own. Fry pushed himself up, lifting his head toward the sky. Of all possible times, they choose to attack now? He muttered under his breath, annoyance creeping into his voice as Nameless warned him instantly. Several strong opponents are surrounding us. I figured at least that much. Fry replied sharply, while Ada slowly sat up behind him, still clutching Carmen's corpse tightly. Fry, what just happened? We're under attack, Ada. From this point on, don't leave my side. And get rid of Carmen's body. She's dead, and holding on to her won't help. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were fixed on the sky, hunting for the source of the attack. Ada hesitated. She refused to let go of Carmen's corpse. Carmen was still there, lying lifeless in her arms, with a gaping, bloody cavity in her chest. She was undeniably dead. But Ada wanted to at least bury her properly. It was the least she could offer her. Carmen died in agony, especially after watching Fry kill her son right before her eyes. Despite all her sins, she wanted him to live. And Ada couldn't forget that. Fry understood her feelings perfectly, but he ignored Carmen's final wish without a care. Now all that was left of Carmen was her corpse, and Fry intended to discard it without hesitation. Ada found this cruel, but she wasn't naive. They were in a battlefield, hunted by terrifying enemies. She herself was a burden to Fry, never mind carrying a second corpse. So, reluctantly, she laid Carmen's body down and stayed close to Fry. She looked utterly broken, but she understood she had no choice. She was too weak to change anything. Meanwhile, a violent star like aura surged around Fry as he summoned the full destructive output of the black hole aura. This is going to be difficult, Fry muttered with a strained smile, as their enemies finally revealed themselves. Both figures hovered in the sky, bathed in moonlight and the fractured glow of the split moon. Their presence was overwhelming, especially that familiar demon who once plunged Fry into terror. Zebar, I didn't expect to see your cursed face again this soon. Fry drew the Dark Sister, while Balerian's black terror wrapped around his arm in the form of an armored shadow limb. His enemies were none other than the 10th seat of the upper demons, Zebar, and Thanatos, the puppeteer Geppetto, rank 13. Both demons laughed mockingly as they descended from the sky. You owe a debt, Fry Starlight, and don't think luck will save you this time. Zebar cracked his knuckles, his body radiating monstrous power. A wild, destructive force trapped beneath his massive black armor. The Katarina armor. Your opponent this time isn't a clone, but the real 10th upper seat. So prepare yourself. Today you'll suffer more than you ever have. You talk a lot for a mutt who brought another demon along to help him. Fry sneered, shifting into a stance to protect Ada. She froze completely. She couldn't move an inch under the crushing pressure exuding from all three demons. Fry was in a nightmarish position, not only outnumbered but forced to protect Ada on top of it. Secretly, he attempted teleportation to escape. But his enemies had prepared for that. They locked the entire area under an aura barrier. Frey's teleportation required sending aura to the target location first. But with the barrier sealing the surroundings, he couldn't send his aura past their walls. Whisker never repeated mistakes, and this time he came prepared. What's wrong, Fry? Does this feel unfair? Hey! Zebar laughed loudly, pointing at him. You've got the mighty Nameless inside you, after all. Don't blame me. This much is barely enough for someone like you. You're using Nameless as an excuse to make it 2 versus 1? Pathetic. I never imagined the great 10th upper demon could be this desperate. Fry continued provoking him, sidestepping subtly as Geppetto circled from the other side. Zebar didn't seem offended. Instead, he burst into laughter. 2 versus 1? It seems you're the one misunderstanding something, Fry Starlight. His eye glowed with a terrifying light, instantly alarming Fry. This is 3 versus 1. The moment those words left his mouth, a crushing pressure slammed down on the battlefield, announcing the arrival of another monster, a monster whose power rivaled Zebar's, or perhaps even surpassed it. Frey's expression darkened completely as he slowly turned his head toward the masked man who appeared from the void, approaching beside Geppetto. In that moment, Fry recalled Snow's warning from their previous battle against the Ultras, the masked monster that defeated Snow with shocking ease. The creature Snow begged Fry to team up with him against. Now, that very monster had arrived to join Zebar and Geppetto. When I thought things couldn't possibly get worse, that bastard shows up too. Surrounded by 3 monsters, Fry stood alone, shielding his sister, the most important person he had left, with nothing but his own body. It was, without a doubt, a hopeless situation, let alone fighting all three at once. He wasn't even confident he could defeat Zebar alone. Frey's mind worked at an absurd speed, burning itself in a frantic attempt to find a way out of this nightmare. Since the beginning of his second life, he had likely never faced a situation this desperate. No matter how hard Fry tried to think, every path led to the same ending. Defeat. Nothing else. At that moment, Fry turned toward Ada. I don't care what happens to me, but Ada must survive this. Fry was fully aware that his enemies would not kill him. Capturing him would benefit them far more. But Ada, nothing guaranteed her survival. Think. He cursed himself internally, pushing his mind to its limit. Think, damn it, how do I survive this cursed situation? His head felt like it was burning, overwhelmed by the weight of the crisis. Fry was a genius. His mind moved far faster than any normal human's. Within mere seconds, he had run through hundreds of scenarios. All of them led to death. The only viable path was to make Nameless take control again. But the Masked King had rejected that option completely, leaving Fry with no choice but to fight alone. Think, damn you, how do I get out of this? He screamed internally, throwing every shred of instinct, experience, and power he possessed into searching for an answer. And then, at the peak of his collapse, reality seemed to freeze. Something happened that shattered every thought in his mind. Frey's eyes had been fixed on his enemies the entire time. Zebar, Geppetto, and the hooded figure shrouded in black. But in a fleeting moment, the masked figure slowly removed his hood, revealing his face. Frey's eyes met his for the very first time, and his overheated, chaotic mind was wiped blank in an instant. Huh? Fry exhaled unconsciously, feeling his veins burn and every nerve in his body erupt at once. It was catastrophic. He couldn't look away. He couldn't think. He could barely breathe. Shock froze Fry in place. And seconds later, Ada noticed the man as well. Her hands flew over her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Father, she whispered. Zebar and Geppetto burst into mocking laughter at the same time. Fry stood there, eyes wide, on the verge of losing his mind. Because the man before him was Abraham Starlight, the father whose pictures he'd seen hundreds of times, whose memories he once relived in full. A fake? Fry whispered, stumbling one step backward without meaning to. A fake. A clone. An illusion. Those were Frey's first thoughts. His mind refused to accept that the man standing there was truly his father, the man who had died long ago. But only seconds later, he realized how wrong he was. His enhanced senses were sharper than ever. He could feel Abraham's aura, his entire body created purely from aura. Fry knew his father's boundary-breaking ability better than anyone. He knew how Abraham had destroyed all internal pathways within his body, turning his entire form into pure, unrestricted energy. The absolute manipulator. There was only one man in the world who possessed such power. Fry saw the lifeless blackness in Abraham's eyes, the dead expression carved onto his face. Slowly, Frey's gaze slid toward the 13th ranked demon, Geppetto, the necromancer who animated corpses, who turned the dead into mindless puppets built only to kill. And in that moment Fry understood everything. Father, he whispered, voice cracking. The father who fought for me. The father who died to save me. Abraham Starlight had lived his entire life for his family. He endured hardship in two worlds. He suffered endlessly, and in the end, died to protect the son he cherished. And now, his corpse had been desecrated by some filthy demon. The air grew heavier. The ground trembled. The sky itself seemed to prepare for what was coming. Geppetto! Fry roared, and the aura of the black hole erupted from his body with a force far greater than ever before, shooting upward like a pillar tearing through the heavens. The pressure alone hurled Ada away violently, smashing her into the rubble and cutting her all over. But Fry saw none of it. His bloodshot eyes focused only on the monsters in front of him. Rage. A rage unlike anything he had ever felt. His fists clenched so tightly his nails burrowed into his palms. His lips split as he bit down hard enough to bleed. Zebar stepped forward, raising the Katarina blade, his confident grin unwavering. Here we go. The demon readied himself. But Fry turned toward him, eyes so furious they were nearly glowing red. Zebar, you've made a fatal mistake. A mistake so massive you cannot begin to comprehend its consequences. His voice was ice-cold as he lowered his stance. I'll kill you here and now. You and that filthy demon you brought with you. His rage thundered across the battlefield, and Zebar roared back with equal intensity. Then come and try. Boom! At the same instant, both Fry and Zebar exploded forward, shattering the ground beneath their feet. Their bodies collided with devastating power, unleashing storms of destructive aura. Frey's black hole aura clashed with Zebar's overwhelming darkness. The Katarina blade met the Dark Sister in a blinding arc of sparks and death. The battle had begun. I see you've grown stronger than you were the last time. Zebar praised his opponent, before increasing the sheer volume of aura bursting from his body. But that is nowhere near enough. Shut that damned mouth of yours. Fry fired back immediately, his sword ripping through the air the same way Nameless once did in the past. The momentum of the strike overwhelmed Zebar, forcing him back violently until his feet sank into the ground as he struggled to stabilize himself. Not bad, Zebar muttered as he lifted his head upward, blocking Frey's follow-up attack descending from above. Boom! Fry swung his blade downward, and Zebar caught the strike with his own sword. The pressure forced both Zebar and Fry deep into the ground, unleashing destruction across everything around them. The damage generated by this battle would surpass their previous clash many times over. This much was obvious. But this time, the fight was not 1 versus 1. The moment Fry tried to strike the rank 10 demon, an extremely fast attack shot toward him from the side. Fry barely managed to block the strike, which sent him flying. But his new opponent pursued him instantly, moving at the speed of light. Before Fry, Abraham appeared, holding a sword forged from pure, radiant light, attacking his own son. Under Frey's stunned gaze, realizing he was now about to fight his only father, Abraham's blade carved through Frey's body, exploiting that brief moment of hesitation. Fry pulled back at the very last second, distancing himself from Abraham. The attack revealed a horrific cut tearing across Frey's shoulder entirely. Yet he ignored both the pain and the blood, as the wound regenerated instantly. But his face showed a different kind of agony. The pain of realizing he was being forced to raise his sword against his father. Father, whether it's me or you, why does this life insist on tormenting us? Even to the very end? Fry spoke sorrowfully as he parried Abraham's glowing sword. Even after the end, even after death, don't you deserve rest? Don't you deserve salvation after all that suffering? After everything Abraham endured, didn't he deserve a proper end? Of course he did. But the demons had desecrated his corpse, turning him into a weapon even after death. That alone made Fry boil with rage. But he was immediately trapped again, as Zebar joined Abraham and attacked from the other side. The battle turned into 2 versus 1, and both enemies were clearly stronger than Fry, to the point that he could only resist thanks to his overwhelming abilities alone. Against them, Fry plunged into a brutal fight, pouring every piece of himself into it, channeling all his rage and all his emotions into each strike. But the result was not going to change easily. The fury of Fry Starlight alone was not enough to alter fate. But what about his fury? In the midst of the battle, at the heart of the chaos, for a brief moment, the shadow of another man appeared behind Fry, a masked man's silhouette, and without warning, Fry unleashed a wave of aura that blasted both Zebar and Abraham away at once. At that moment, Fry heard Nameless' voice inside his mind once again. But the king's voice was not cold this time. It carried an additional weight, something Nameless had never expressed before. Nameless, was angry. Fry, from this moment on you will follow my words word for word. In this battle you will not move. You will not breathe, unless I permit it, Nameless said, seething with fury himself. It felt as though Frey's rage had flowed directly into him as well, confirming Nameless' fears. Realizing that Fry had tainted him, and the bond between them had grown far stronger. But Nameless did not dwell on it. His rage demanded only one thing: the death of those bastards standing before him. Fry understood clearly that Nameless shared the same emotions, the same hatred, the same goal. So he pulled out Nameless' mask and placed it upon his face. Fry was still in control. He didn't switch bodies with Nameless. Yet somehow, he became completely different the moment the mask touched his skin, to the extent that Zebar's smile vanished instantly, replaced with absolute seriousness. On one side stood Zebar and Abraham Starlight, and on the other stood Fry Starlight, the masked Fry, while Nameless' shadow towered behind him. In a way, the battle now looked like 2 versus 2. One thing was certain: this fight would not end unless one side died. On the ruined grounds of the temple, darkness thickened beneath Fry Starlight's feet. His shadow looked different. With the Nameless mask now fixed over his face, the aura around Fry shifted completely. Zebar was no longer smiling. The upper 10th rank demon was anything but foolish. He instantly understood that Fry was the one in control, not Nameless. Yet even so, Zebar did not dare underestimate what he was facing. That black mask was terrifying for beings like him. Zebar stared at Fry for a moment before glancing toward Abraham. The latter remained exactly as he was, an emotionless killing machine, his entire focus locked onto a single command: destroy Fry Starlight. Zebar then lowered his gaze to himself. This time I'm at 100% of my power. I have the Katarina armor, and we prepared for everything. Even if Nameless comes out again, we'll suppress him here. He stepped forward, and the dark glow of the Katarina armor surged around him with a violent hum. The current Zebar was a true monster. Fry was cornered by him alone, not even counting Abraham Starlight's overwhelming presence and Geppetto lurking behind them. This time the task was brutal. There was no room to retreat. They had dared violate his father's corpse. Either I kill them here, or I die trying. To free Abraham, he had to kill Geppetto and dispel the ability, or destroy Abraham's body itself. Either way, he needed to break through Zebar. A fight was inevitable. For a brief moment, the 3 warriors didn't move. But that didn't last long. A second later, all 3 hurled themselves toward one another. Fry was forced to block both Zebar and Abraham at once. The resulting shockwave hurled him backward, barely maintaining balance. Zebar followed immediately, sending a lightning-fast slash with the Katarina sword. Fry only avoided it by teleporting on the spot. He appeared behind Zebar, attempting a counterattack. But Abraham materialized in front of him with the same speed, parrying the strike, then slamming a devastating punch with his free hand. Fry was blasted through the rubble. He rose instantly, charging again as both Zebar and Abraham chased him without a moment's pause. The black hole aura blazed violently around Fry, pushing his power to its absolute peak. Dark Ascension plus Black Hole Aura 100% output. The combined might of Balerion and the Dark Sister. This was Fry at his current maximum. And thanks to Nameless' method of aura circulation, he no longer risked being drained quickly by using the black hole aura. Listen carefully and carve my words into your mind. Black hole attacks are the key to victory here, since you still lack the advanced stages of shadow adaptation. Nameless' voice echoed in Frey's mind while he clashed with his father and Zebar. Be cautious of the Katarina sword. Avoid it as much as possible. The second stage of shadow adaptation has started recognizing its damage since you were struck by it in the past but not fully. Meaning wounds caused by that sword will regenerate slower than the others. And that will be fatal in a battle like this. Nameless continued issuing instructions, sticking to Fry like a shadow. Abraham attacked from the front, his body glowing with a blinding holy light. His strikes were unbelievably fast and destructive. Fry had to unleash a terrifying amount of black hole aura just to stay even with him, let alone gain any advantage. Then Zebar ambushed him from behind, carving into his back with a deep wound. Zebar grinned widely at the sight of his sword sinking into Frey's flesh. But his joy didn't last long. He had only struck a delayed after image. Fry had already teleported away. Your senses are excellent, use them to track your enemies so they can never surprise you. Avoid attacks using teleportation. Spatial manipulation is a deadly weapon that few truly comprehend. Responding to Nameless words, Fry stomped the ground, causing a massive sigil to materialize across the battlefield. You've tried it before, haven't you? My ability to manipulate space. Nameless' voice flowed through the mask, feeding knowledge directly into Frey's mind. This time, Nameless controlled the mask fully, allowing him to pass everything Fry needed without restriction. With this ability at your disposal, you will always have the upper hand, no matter who stands against you. You are now the master of this battlefield. From both sides, Zebar and Abraham charged at impossible speed, their blades inches away from Frey's neck, ready to end him in one strike. Both were prepared for his teleportation this time. Both were waiting to kill him the moment he blinked away. But something different happened. Instead of teleporting, Fry watched as Zebar and Abraham suddenly appeared in each other's positions, swapped by force. The hell? He switched our spots. The spatial formation under Frey's feet glowed brighter, grounding his dominance. For one fleeting moment, both Zebar and Abraham had their backs turned to Fry. And with light-speed precision, Fry unleashed a massive black hole aura strike, blasting them both away. He stood alone, eyes locked onto them. Abraham was injured, yes, but the damage was shallow. The power of the absolute manipulator was horrifying. At the last moment, Abraham redirected an enormous amount of aura toward the point of impact, turning Frey's strike into something that felt like hitting a shield rather than a body of flesh. As for Zebar, the Katarina armor absorbed the blow magnificently. Katarina armor that scrap heap can actually distribute incoming damage evenly across the entire armor. That lowers the force of any attack dramatically. Nameless explained the ability clearly. The armor's function was simple, but terrifying. Frey's strike had been powerful, but by spreading the damage across the entire armor, it became nearly nothing. If it was originally 100%, it became a scattered 5% across dozens of points. How annoying! Fry muttered, glaring at the Katarina armor before turning back to Abraham. The latter was already preparing to attack again. Father, so this is what it means to fight you. Fry understood, even if only a little, just how terrifying Abraham truly was. If it weren't for Nameless supporting him, and for all the boundary-breaking abilities he possessed, there was no way he could have survived against Abraham nor against Zebar. Fry closed his eyes for a brief moment, then opened them again. I find myself boiling with rage every time I look at you. Father, I burn with fury at the demons who made you point your blade at me after you gave your life trying to save me. It was a complete insult to Abraham, an insult to the meaning of his death. And I find myself angry at my own self for allowing something like this to happen in the first place. Fry clenched his fist, the glow of his aura intensifying around him. If I hadn't been naive, if only I were more aware, stronger, then I would never have allowed my enemies to toy with me, or with what little remains of you. So allow me, Father, to correct this mistake of mine, and atone for this sin. Here and now. Fry was ready to destroy his father's body. And that alone caused an immense, unbearable pain to Fry, who was seeing his father in front of him for the very first time, seeing him in flesh and blood, not as a memory or an image. As his grip tightened around his sword, Fry suffered in silence. A heat built up in his chest, a bitterness so deep he wanted to scream, yet he suppressed it all. On the other side, Zebar approached with heavy steps, laughing. What's this? Are you talking to your father's corpse? Ahahaha. Zebar laughed loudly, mocking him. Wake up, Fry Starlight. That thing is nothing but a killing machine meant to destroy you. Your father isn't anywhere near this place. He has been stripped of those pathetic human emotions that made him weak. He's a far better warrior like this, even if he's nothing but a dog that follows orders now. Those words seemed to awaken something. Fry vanished completely, reappearing in front of Zebar, attacking him with savage, unhinged fury. The Dark Sister clashed violently against Katarina's blade, both of them unleashing a massive storm of aura. Zebar, remember my words. You will not leave this place alive today. Boom! Their auras exploded violently as the two tried to overpower one another. I can see the future, Zebar, and what I see before me now is your filthy corpse. You damned demon! With incredible speed, Frey's sword bypassed Katarina's blade and struck the center of the armor with brutal force. Zebar countered instantly, but Fry teleported, avoiding the blow. The moment he did, Abraham appeared once more, attacking him again. The two engaged in a rapid, intense duel, their blades clashing with such speed that waves of destruction spread across the battlefield. And in the middle of the clash, Abraham formed a second sword of pure light, gripping it in his other hand. Using two blades, the former Starlight prodigy doubled the number of his strikes, overwhelming Fry completely. Abraham was a terrifying swordsman. Wounds spread across Frey's body one after another, and within seconds, Abraham fully overtook him, delivering a sudden kick that Fry did not expect, sending him flying. Using the momentum, Zebar appeared behind Fry, opening his mouth. And from within that mouth, Zebar unleashed a massive beam of aura that tore through space itself, destroying everything in its path until it exploded in the distance. It was one of Zebar's deadliest attacks. A concentrated aura bomb detonated inside his own body to unleash it through his mouth. But Fry wasn't harmed at all, because he had, unbelievably, swapped his place with Abraham, making the latter take the hit instead. Fry appeared where Abraham had been, completely unscathed. As for Abraham, he staggered out from the explosion of Zebar's attack after taking it head-on, yet he managed to block it, as expected of him. This annoying ability that Brat's gotten his hands on something troublesome. Zebar muttered before lunging at Fry again. Abraham followed as well, both of them closing in to trap him. Fry continued manipulating space each time, swapping positions between himself and his enemies in rapid succession, allowing him to survive against both of them with astonishing skill. In particular, Zebar seemed irritated by it. It's hard to predict him. Sometimes he swaps the three of us, and other times he teleports alone. Given the speed of all three fighters, this only granted Fry a few breaths each time. But those few breaths were enough to create a difference. The battle intensified with every slash, every movement, every strike. The three of them exchanged a monstrous number of attacks, leaving three chaotic trails of aura that twisted and tangled across the battlefield. During this, Fry felt his head burning from the pressure. He was forced to control the entire battlefield perfectly just to survive against Zebar and Abraham, two SSS rank fighters who had reached advanced stages of their rank. Restrain your anger. Don't let your emotions control you. One mistake, only one, and everything ends. Nameless warned, still guiding Fry in the midst of the frantic battle. But despite his own words, Nameless found himself contradicting himself. The longer the battle continued, the stranger the masked king acted. This is odd, why am I this angry? Nameless questioned, disturbed by his state. He had been telling Fry to let go of his anger. Yet he himself was growing furious, mirroring Frey's emotions. These emotions, they're like poison, spreading inside me, blinding my judgment, throwing off my balance. Within the mental world inside Frey's mind, Nameless clenched his fist as he watched the battle unfold. Nameless was missing countless pieces of himself, pieces of his mind, his identity. What remained was nothing but a single fragment. A fragment like a pure white canvas, now stained heavily by the filth of Fry Starlight. Why do I grow angry when he grows angry? Why do I grieve when he grieves? Why does pain crawl into me when he suffers? Earlier, seeing what had been done to Abraham had sent him into a frenzy, as if Abraham had been his father, not Fry Starlight's. Nameless resented himself. He felt himself sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss named Fry Starlight. A spectator trapped within his mind, he cursed. I don't understand. You wield my abilities. You hold my strength. These are your enemies. These are the ones who did this to your father. So why haven't you killed them yet? Why are you so weak? Nameless questioned, while Fry continued struggling against Zebar and his father. Surviving against two SSS-rank combatants like this was, in itself, miraculous. But through the eyes of Nameless, it was weakness. Fry was not supposed to merely survive. He should kill them, destroy them, erase them completely from existence. That is what Nameless would have done if he were the one fighting. But the Masked King refused to take Fry Starlight's body again. His poison has seeped this deeply into me without even taking his body. What would happen if I did? At that thought, Nameless knew there would be no return. This is your battle, not mine. This fight was Fry Starlight's fight. So stop playing around. And kill them. Nameless roared into Frey's mind, forcing him to push himself further. Meanwhile, the battle reached its peak. Zebar and Abraham unleashed sweeping attacks carrying horrifying power, so overwhelming that Fry struggled desperately beneath their pressure. It was truly a hopeless fight, and Geppetto hadn't even joined in yet. Despite being weaker than the other two, his involvement would only worsen Frey's situation. Fortunately, he hadn't acted yet. Geppetto was cunning. His eyes were on Ada Starlight, who lay on the ground to the side, blood dripping from her head after being thrown earlier at the start of the battle. Geppetto knew full well what that girl meant to Fry, so he approached with the intention of taking her. You'll make a fine bargaining chip against that monster. Geppetto smiled as he extended his hand toward Ada, but he couldn't touch her. Between Ada's fingers, an artifact began to glow, releasing a powerful aura barrier that shielded her completely, preventing Geppetto from laying a finger on her. The rank 13 demon didn't understand what he was seeing. He immediately attacked, attempting to shatter the aura barrier. But his assault had no effect whatsoever. That aura was strange, unnaturally powerful. It wrapped around Ada protectively, refusing to allow the demon's hands anywhere near her, as if someone had poured their entire being into that artifact for this purpose alone. Naturally, Fry understood what had happened. Because of that, he was able to fight with at least a sliver of relief, knowing his sister would not fall into the enemy's hands. Geppetto's turn would come soon enough. But first, Zebar and Abraham had to be dealt with. Thus, Fry poured every ounce of his focus into them, fighting with everything he had. Between Frey's struggle and Nameless' turmoil, the battle reached a terrifying crescendo, a clash foreshadowing destruction unlike anything seen before. Three raging auras intertwined, each trying to annihilate the others. Bursts of light shook the battlefield, and with every passing second the ground suffered under the weight of that colossal clash. The fight moved at a speed beyond comprehension, fast enough to tear the world apart, yet so chaotic that following its flow was nearly impossible. Thanks to Fry Starlight's ability to manipulate space, he kept switching his position with both Zebar and Abraham, and that alone was what allowed him to survive this long. How long do you plan to rely on these pathetic tricks of yours, Fry Starlight? The crescent-shaped Katarina blade was overwhelmingly powerful, and every now and then, Zebar managed to land a clean hit on Fry with it. You cannot win. There is no hope for you here. In perfect sync with Zebar's words, Abraham's blade of pure light struck Frey's side, hurling him away. Whether it's me or your father, we're both stronger than you. You're the same weak brat you've always been. This power of yours will accomplish nothing. You can't even injure me. Zebar tapped the Katarina armor that had blocked every one of Frey's attacks. The body of the 10th rank demon remained unharmed. Not a single strike from Fry had managed to pierce it. The vitality of demons was absurdly high. They could continue fighting even if their bodies were half-shredded. To defeat Zebar, Fry needed to inflict catastrophic damage, and he had failed to do that so far. The same applied to Abraham, whose body was composed entirely of aura. He looked utterly invincible. I see you know the truth, Fry. The truth that we don't want to kill you. Zebar smirked cunningly as he approached alongside Abraham. You are essential to our king. That's why we avoided ending your life, even though we easily could have done so many times already. But this time, our goal is different. Zebar extended his hand, clenching his fist tightly. We will crush you here, and take you back to Helmand. There, the king will handle you himself. His tone sharpened, revealing his true intentions. Playtime is over. The farce called humanity is coming to an end. And so is your role, Fry Starlight. Once you fall into the Demon King's hands, you won't be able to do anything. Not you, nor the nameless inside you. That will be your end, and the gateway for the king to return and shake the world once more. Zebar screamed, spreading his arms wide like a deranged prophet. Meanwhile, Fry rose to his feet again, adopting his fighting stance. You talk too much. Boom! Fry shot forward like a dark astral missile fueled by the black hole aura. He collided with Zebar, driving him back with overwhelming force until both of them blasted through layers of debris. Fry unleashed a terrifying storm of sword swings. So many and so fast they blurred into streaks of darkness, cornering Zebar. But the 10th-rank demon responded in equal measure, clashing with Fry blow for blow. So be it. Let's finish our previous battle here and now, Zebar shouted, grin widening. But don't forget, I'm not your only opponent this time. Frey's eyes snapped to the blade in front of his face. Abraham's sword, but it never reached him. Fry swapped places with Abraham at the last possible instant. Boom! The clash repeated. Fry attacked, Abraham parried, and Zebar exploited every opening, slicing into Fry and leaving a deep gash across his body. It seems your little spatial trick won't help you much anymore. And the demon was right. In a battle of such speed, even if Fry avoided 9 out of 10 strikes, the 10th would still hit him. His opponents weren't amateurs. Tracking every single move they made was nearly impossible. Fry retreated, but Abraham was already on him, with Zebar right behind. Facing them both, Fry remained unervingly calm behind the gaps of the nameless mask. Zebar, 10th rank upper demon, peak of SSS stage 3. And my father somehow equal to him. Fry didn't know exactly how his father had reached such a level, but the answer pointed toward the absolute manipulator ability. They're both stronger than me. Both of them. At one point, he wondered if bringing Snow might have let them fight evenly. But even that wasn't true. Snow had already lost to Abraham. Effortlessly. Snow had grown stronger after fighting Weskier, but not enough to defeat Abraham or Zebar. And Fry wasn't different, except for one thing. He was now using black hole aura at full capacity. But even with this power, I can't hold out against both of them. Fry knew this fact with complete certainty, which led him to another realization. They're holding back. Both Zebar and Abraham were restricting their true power. In every sword clash, Fry could feel it. It's as if the real fight they came for hasn't even begun. Zebar wasn't fighting with the same ferocity as the clone Fry had defeated, and Abraham hadn't unleashed any wide-range attacks. They defended fiercely, pressured him steadily, and attempted to exhaust him completely. Boom! A massive explosion of aura erupted as the three continued clashing. Are they afraid of Nameless appearing again? If Nameless took over Frey's body again, everything would change instantly. Even with only 4 stages of shadow adaptation, Nameless could fully utilize the mask's knowledge. Unlike Fry, and Nameless with 4 stages was more than enough to destroy Zebar. Even with Abraham's help, they wouldn't survive. For them to have a chance, Weskier would need to intervene. But as Fry endured the overwhelming pressure, realization dawned on him. Why hasn't Weskier come himself, instead of sending Zebar and his father? Had he come as well, the entire process would have been accelerated. Slash! Abraham's blade clashed against Frey's own, carving fresh wounds across Frey's body. Yet his gaze did not waver. Weskier isn't an idiot. There is no way he failed to consider something I managed to notice. In other words, that bastard is here. Close by. Fry scanned the surroundings, then shifted his gaze back toward his opponents. The fourth-rank superior demon was near, watching everything with a satisfied smile. Without a doubt. I wonder, are you enjoying the show, Aegon? Does watching me fight my father? Does seeing my father try to hurt me after dying to protect me please you? Does it delight you? Fry tightened his grip around his sword, then unleashed a sweeping horizontal cut infused with a massive surge of black hole aura, blasting both Zebar and Abraham back. At that same moment, he used Nameless Aura Circulation method, reclaiming a significant portion of the power he had just released. Standing at a distance from them, Fry wrapped his fingers around his sword hilt as his aura swelled. I'm just a man. No matter how much I try to imitate monsters, no matter how hard I try to become one myself. In moments like this, I find myself returning to my roots. The pain eating away at my chest right now is proof enough of my weakness. He spoke softly, touching his chest, a faint and bitter smile hidden beneath the mask. Isn't that what you think as well? Tell me, Nameless. Nameless did not respond, but Fry hadn't expected him to. His body was soaked in blood despite not actually being injured, a result of his regeneration saving him from countless fatal wounds inflicted by both Zebar and Abraham. Every strike I land on my father chips away at my resolve. It feels as though I'm carving pieces from my own soul rather than cutting his body. Even now I hesitate, though rage devours me, though the urge to kill fills every corner of my being, I still falter before my father. And that alone is proof of my weakness, proof that I remain the naive fool I always was. If that's the case, then why walk the path of blood all this time? Why kill all those people? Why stain my hands with their blood? Was it not for the sake of power? But now, his enemies were holding back against him, treating him as a foe unworthy of their full strength. Just an obstacle, a warm-up before the real battle they were waiting for. In the end, it was as though Fry Starlight's entire struggle meant nothing. He was merely a source of entertainment for them. Cruel as that thought was, his opponents were Zebar, who had lived for thousands of years, and Abraham Starlight, whose strength had grown throughout his entire life and was further amplified by conflagration. Yet that was no excuse for Fry, who possessed nameless abilities. Am I really this weak? Fry muttered unconsciously. Before him, Abraham charged from the right, radiating a roaring white aura, while Zebar advanced from the left with a pitch-black demonic haze. Both appeared overwhelmingly more fearsome than Frey's own stellar aura. Zebar paused for a moment, then smiled. Yes, you're very weak, Fry Starlight. He spoke with absolute certainty. Fry went silent for a few seconds, then replied, I see. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were entirely different. Cold, sharp, murderous. In that instant, Fry shifted his entire stance, raising his sword overhead. Then, boom! Aura erupted violently around him, unleashing the full reserves of his SS rank power. Then witness what this weakling can do. There was no point dragging out a meaningless exchange. Fry understood this clearly. His enemies would only continue to corner him. So instead of giving them the chance, he placed everything on a reckless idea that had surfaced under the crushing weight of his circumstances. Harnessing his rage, his grief, as fuel, Fry unleashed his full power. 10,000 steps of shadow, Fry Starlight style. Drawing a deep breath, he repeated what he once did long ago, when he unleashed the strike that split the moon and destroyed Zebar's previous clone entirely. Faced with the overwhelming aura Fry summoned, Zebar did not dare underestimate it. And even Abraham felt the looming danger. The strike was no joke. Black hole aura output. 100% plus Dark Ascension plus combined power of Dark Sister and Balerion. Nameless Judgment. Cutting down in a colossal vertical arc, Fry carved a massive crescent through the air. A crescent shaped like a dark stellar moon, as he unleashed Nameless Judgment upon both Zebar and Abraham. The force behind that attack was so catastrophic that even Geppetto felt terror creeping through him, despite being outside its effective range. In that moment, he was grateful he chose to abduct Ada Starlight rather than join the battle, for he would not have survived such an attack. The blinding void of nameless judgment devoured everything before it. Its destructive might was on an entirely different level. But against this devouring darkness, another light surged. From within the void of black hole aura, the radiant star of Abraham Starlight blazed forth, forming an enormous barrier of stellar aura to counter Frey's strike. This was an advanced, transcendent technique Abraham had created in the past, just as Fry had created his own nameless judgment. One technique was designed for overwhelming destruction, the other for absolute protection, a bitter irony between father and son, each unleashing their signature techniques against one another. Abraham Starlight was extraordinary. After a full minute of that apocalyptic clash that erased the land itself, Abraham emerged, with Zebar standing behind him. Both of them stood before Abraham's colossal stellar barrier, now cracked and splintering piece by piece. Yet it had managed to withstand Fry Starlight's strongest attack. That alone made Zebar burst into laughter. "Is this your trump card, Fry Starlight? The same attack you used on me before? How naive. This won't save you here." Zebar laughed maniacally, especially since it was Abraham who had taken the brunt of Frey's assault. But, almost magically, Zebar's smile faded the moment he sensed something terribly wrong. The aura. It's moving? He scanned his surroundings, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. The aura from Frey's nameless judgment, a massive amount of energy born from the black hole, was unmistakably scattered in the air. But instead of dissipating after Abraham blocked it, it began to stir, gathering again, flowing back toward one point, toward Fry Starlight himself. Fry raised his sword again toward Zebar and Abraham, his eyes sharp and merciless, so sharp they sent shivers down Zebar's spine. 10,000 steps of shadow. "You've got to be kidding me," Zebar cursed, launching himself at Fry with all his strength. Zebar's blade was mere millimeters from Frey's face, but Fry teleported away at the last instant before unleashing his attack. Nameless judgment. Boom! Before Zebar's eyes, Frey's attack tore the very fabric of space once more, roaring straight toward him. Zebar gritted his teeth and poured out the entirety of his power, saturating Katarina's blade with a vast surge of aura. Void Eater. From Katarina's sword, Zebar released a massive dark crescent, equal in scale to Frey's attack. And within seconds, the two colossal blows collided in an unprecedented clash, devouring each other violently. Zebar's dark aura versus Frey's black hole aura. After a brutal struggle, Frey's attack began to overpower Zebar's. A portion of the strike tore through, carving a monstrous dent into the Katarina armor. The armor attempted to distribute the damage evenly, but it was useless against the overwhelming quantity of aura in Frey's strike. The clash continued for a long, thunderous moment, until everything finally dispersed. Zebar had managed to block the attack. Barely, but his face turned to stone the moment he sensed the aura moving again. Horror spread across his features as the aura drifted back toward Fry, who raised his sword yet again, his killing intent erupting like a storm. 10,000 steps of shadow. Just hearing those words, Zebar's body exploded with power, and Abraham erupted into a blinding burst of stellar light, each unleashing their full strength at once. Both shot toward Fry at the speed of light, ripping the air apart in a desperate attempt to reach him. But they couldn't. They couldn't reach him in time, not with Fry bending space itself. Before their eyes, Fry tore the world open once more. Nameless judgment. Fry roared with every fiber of his being, unleashing his strongest strike again, swallowing them both in the abyss of the black hole. Zebar and Abraham were devoured by the attack, resisting with every ounce of their formidable power, refusing to fall. Soon the aura cleared, revealing a colossal crater carved into the earth, a hollow wound in the land where everything inside had been erased. Zebar and Abraham still stood, but barely. A crack split across Katerina's armor. Abraham's aura-forged body bore a deep wound glowing with starlight. They were injured yet still standing. But Zebar found no relief, because the aura stirred again, and Fry lifted his blade. 10,000 steps of shadow. With every word Fry spoke, the earth trembled, quaking as if struck by a cataclysm. At the same time, he shook the hearts of his enemies just as violently. Fry Starlight, how far are you planning to go? Zebar lunged again. Abraham followed. But the only thing they met head-on was another blazing, nameless judgment, devouring them both in a horrifying torrent of darkness. Until death, Fry answered coldly, reclaiming the aura back into himself. Before that terrifying sight, the masked young man raising his sword again and again, unleashing destruction without end. Zebar found himself afraid. When he looked at all the power Fry had unleashed, his own words echoed mockingly inside his skull. Had he truly called this monster weak? Weak? Him? The thought struck Zebar like lightning, before the darkness swallowed him once more. Both Zebar and Abraham resisted to the very end, unleashing 100% of their power, holding nothing back for any future battle. They poured every drop of strength into this fight. Why? Because the man standing before them had climbed far above what they had anticipated, to a level where, for the first time since the battle began, they felt danger. Fry Starlight unleashed nameless judgment again and again, an endless barrage that shook the entire planet called Earth. Waves of black hole energy and violent aura tremors rippled across the world until every living being on Earth could feel it. Every creature sensed it. The tragic, world-shattering struggle of Fry Starlight. Far away within the Shadow Sect, many individuals rose to their feet, staring at the horizon in disbelief, instantly recognizing whose aura that belonged to. Among them, Snow Lionheart understood more than anyone. Fry. Realizing what was happening, Snow shot into the sky without hesitation, a beam of light tearing through the heavens as he raced toward that dreadful aura, a terrifying look on his face. And across the world, all of Frey's companions felt it as well, knowing he was now fighting a life-or-death battle somewhere far beyond their reach. In the meantime, Fry continued unleashing nameless judgment one after another without pause. Every strike sent Abraham and Zebar flying, their bodies carved open by wounds that grew more and more gruesome. Despite all their power, neither of them could reach Fry, who was firing off a catastrophic technique over and over as if it were nothing. This wasn't Nameless doing. This was Fry and Fry alone. With each swing of the blade, Nameless, watching from afar, narrowed his eyes. How strange, he called himself weak. Yet he's suddenly executing my technique with near-perfect mastery. Fry was anything but ordinary. At first, he could only restore 30% of his power using the ability Nameless taught him. But during the battle, everything changed. Right now, he's recovering more than 90% of the power from each attack he launches, as if he had mastered this technique centuries ago. For the first time, Nameless was genuinely impressed by the young man called Fry Starlight. With that recovery, Fry could unleash nameless judgment endlessly, his body barely holding together under the recoil. It must have been excruciating. Yet Fry endured it without blinking. Fry Starlight, you are not weak. Nameless whispered, then fell silent, witnessing Frey's final rampage. Frey's frenzy lasted longer still. Only a few minutes. But to those witnessing it, they felt like an eternity. The devastation left behind by Frey's assault erased an enormous region from the face of the earth. What remained was a colossal meteor crater carved into the world. This wasn't Nameless doing. This was Fry and Fry alone. With each swing of the blade, Nameless, watching from afar, narrowed his eyes. How strange, he called himself weak. Yet he's suddenly executing my technique with near-perfect mastery. Fry was anything but ordinary. At first, he could only restore 30% of his power using the ability Nameless taught him. But during the battle, everything changed. Right now, he's recovering more than 90% of the power from each attack he launches, as if he had mastered this technique centuries ago. For the first time, Nameless was genuinely impressed by the young man called Fry Starlight. With that recovery, Fry could unleash Nameless judgment endlessly, his body barely holding together under the recoil. It must have been excruciating. Yet Fry endured it without blinking. "Fry Starlight, you are not weak," Nameless whispered, then fell silent, witnessing Frey's final rampage. Frey's frenzy lasted longer still. Only a few minutes. But to those witnessing it, they felt like an eternity. The devastation left behind by Frey's assault erased an enormous region from the face of the earth. What remained was a colossal meteor crater carved into the world. For a moment, it looked as if Fry would never stop swinging. But eventually he did stop. Not by choice, but because his body forced him to. Huff, huff, huff. Fry gasped for air, barely breathing. Standing there, his arms dangled uselessly at his sides. Dark Sister slipped from his hand, now wrapped in Balerian's essence, clattering weakly onto the broken ground. Fry struggled to remain standing. He could no longer feel his arms. They were finished, completely ruined. Even his regeneration couldn't save them. The damage was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He couldn't even hold his sword anymore. Even aura cycling failed him. His strength was fully drained. You could say he had given everything. Yet Fry refused to stop, because when he lifted his head, he saw he was not the only one still standing. He saw his enemies, Zebar, and his father, both of them still on their feet. Zebar looked wretched. Katarina's once glorious armor shattered in multiple places, dark demonic blood dripping heavily onto the ground. And Abraham Starlight. His body was torn open by long, glowing wounds, each one leaking pure white starlight instead of blood. Aura scattered around him like drifting star dust. They were gravely damaged. They had been forced to give everything they had. But they still stood. And that alone drove the exhausted Fry to lower himself, reaching desperately for his fallen sword. Reaching for Dark Sister. His hand trembled forward. But he couldn't even close his fingers around the hilt. "I must keep fighting." Fry forced the words through clenched teeth as he tried again to lift the sword. And just as he finally managed to touch it, a dark hand clamped down on his shoulder. Before he could react, agony exploded through him as Katarina's blade pierced straight through his chest. "You went too far this time." Fry Starlight, Zebar growled, ripping the sword free and tossing Fry aside as blood drenched the earth. "I admit I underestimated you, but this battle ends now." Zebar approached him, grabbing Fry by his long white hair and lifting his head. "You have nothing left to offer. Look over there." He gestured toward Abraham, who walked toward them slowly. "Your father is still here. Still our loyal dog. A dog that will hunt humans one by one." Zebar sneered, tapping his own chest. "And I am still here. I will not die. Do you know what that means?" He leaned close to Frey's ear. "Everything you did was useless." The words echoed inside Fry, crushing him further than any wound could. Fighting unconsciousness, Fry forced himself to remain awake. "I must keep fighting." He tried again and again, but his body no longer obeyed. "You will not fight anymore. You will do nothing. I won't allow it." Zebar clenched his fist and drove it straight through Frey's chest. His arm burst out of Frey's back in a horrifying spray of blood. "You are nothing, Fry Starlight, nothing." Blood poured out of Frey's mouth until he choked on it. All of this happened in full view of Ada Starlight, who watched from behind the aura barrier meant to protect her. Her eyes were empty. Dead. She had already lost hope after seeing her father fight her brother. And now her brother was dying. Her dead eyes shed tears until none were left. She begged the device to save Fry. But no matter how desperately she tried, it would not respond. Felt like the end. But deep within Frey's collapsing body, it wasn't over. Nameless was still there, watching the aftermath silently. He stared for a long time before glancing down at himself. At the emotions that had seeped into him, corroding him to the core. He clenched his fists and stepped toward the campfire within Frey's mind. "You've poisoned me with your emotions," Fry Starlight, so what more harm could you possibly do? Nameless walked forward, toward the flames flickering inside Fry. His eyes glowed. Switch with me, Fry Starlight. Nameless was ready to fight again, ready to take Frey's body, ready to kill the demon, and free Abraham Starlight. It seemed the Masked King had thought long about this choice, and finally accepted it, willing to risk everything. Nameless was seconds away from taking control, from beginning the nightmare that Zebar and every nearby enemy would suffer. But at the last moment, he stopped. He stopped because he sensed something. Something that everyone else sensed too, lifting their heads in the same direction. There, at the edge of the crater of destruction, someone stepped into the battlefield. Someone whose presence made a smile spread across Zebar's face. Finally, he had emerged at last. Descending from above, those cold blue glass-like eyes stared down at them. He lowered his hood, revealing his face and blue hair. It was none other than the engineer, Gehrman. Finally, Zebar's smile widened the moment the outcome he had long sought finally came to pass. Fry Starlight had displayed a level far beyond anything they had expected, but despite this unforeseen obstacle, he and the corpse of Abraham had still succeeded in achieving exactly what they wanted from the very beginning. The engineer, Gehrman, had finally revealed himself on the battlefield after hiding in the shadows all this time. He was there, standing atop the crater, looking down at them with those cold blue eyes. When Zebar's gaze met the man's own, a faint tension crawled into his chest, something that surfaced against his will. He had lived long enough to witness Gehrman at the height of his power, and he remembered all too well what the man had once been capable of. But Zebar quickly steadied himself, tightening his grip on Frey's limp body with one hand after having pierced his chest with the other. Gehrman now was nothing but a shadow of what he used to be. His vessel suffered far more damage than any member of Nameless sect. He had been working on a certain plan for hundreds, no thousands of years. He could no longer fight properly. Dealing with him would not be a problem. And even if the three of them weren't enough, Zebar had no reason to be concerned. And the reason revealed itself at once. Slowly, the world darkened as filthy black ink began forming in the air, gathering upon itself to announce the arrival of another foul demon. Gehrman calmly lifted his gaze away from Zebar and Abraham, directing it instead toward the opponent he knew had been waiting for him. Seconds later, that mass of corruption twisted into the form of Weskier, who stepped into the battlefield with the same vile smile carved across his face. "We meet again, dog of Nameless." Weskier greeted his counterpart in his own twisted way as he floated leisurely over the massive crater carved by Fry Starlight's battle against Zebar and Abraham. "You can't imagine how exhausting it was to drag you out after all these years. You're truly gifted at hiding. So much so that even with the king's eye, I couldn't find you. You should be proud." Weskier wasn't lying. He had never once managed to locate Gehrman throughout his entire stay on Earth. The blue-eyed man always managed to slip away, disrupt his schemes, and sabotage his plans without ever showing himself directly. Gehrman finally revealed his face, and the corners of his lips lifted slightly in a faint smile aimed at the demon. "Save your compliments. I don't need praise from a demon." Gehrman spoke as he removed the torn black cloak he had worn for so long. Seeing that, Weskier's grin widened. "Well now, what do we have here? Am I to assume you intend to fight? In that broken shell of a body? Hey!" He mocked him, letting his eyes roam over every crack and fracture covering Gehrman's vessel. The engineer had once been Nameless' perfect creation, the pinnacle of manipulation over the laws of life and death. Gehrman's current body had been crafted to replicate his former one perfectly. Stronger even, but time had not been kind to him. Only Nameless himself could repair that vessel, for none of the sect members possessed control over the law of life. Possessing that law was the only reason their vessels lived at all. Gehrman did not respond, prompting Weskier to approach him slowly. "You know you stand no chance here, follower of Nameless. Not with your own strength, at least." Weskier's king's eye gleamed ominously. He fully expected Gehrman to appear once they threatened to take Fry to Helmand. That place was completely out of German's reach, so he had no choice but to intervene. But Weskier genuinely believed German would bring support. The Shadow Sect had massacred mankind. Perhaps some of their strongest warriors like Adir would be present. Yet German had come alone. That was what puzzled Weskier. German wasn't stupid. He had shown countless times that he could play at Weskier's level whenever it came to strategy. So Weskier knew the man had something planned, and he intended to uncover it. To do so, he decided to launch the first strike. You're alone this time, follower of Nameless. Even the human you once relied on has become your enemy. Tell me, what will you do now? Weskier moved closer while Zebar and Abraham advanced as well. Zebar still clutching Frey's mangled body in his hand. Meanwhile, Geppetto retreated, dragging Ada with him. He couldn't touch her due to the strange barrier protecting her. So he transported both her and the barrier at once by weaving a massive aura net around them. Ada was barely conscious, blood streaming heavily down her forehead and face. But the dead, hopeless look in her eyes was what stood out most. After witnessing her father and brother fight to the death, after seeing Fry fall, after watching him beaten and brutalized by the very enemies surrounding them, German finally appeared. But alone, he seemed so small compared to their overwhelming might. Weskier wasted no time. He summoned a massive surge of dark aura and launched it toward German at terrifying speed. The attack was monstrous, carrying Weskier's full power. The beam reached German instantly, but then, inexplicably, the dark aura scattered in all directions, dissipating before it could even touch him. Both Weskier and Zebar narrowed their eyes. They failed to grasp what German had done, or how he had nullified the attack. So you still have enough strength left for a passable fight, at least, Weskier said, as his body began radiating an immensely dense aura of darkness. On the other side, Zebar prepared to join the attack as well. Careful, follower of Nameless, Zebar warned, lifting Frey's limp, blood-soaked body so German would clearly see him. Your precious little protege is in my hand. You're a cruel one, aren't you? Letting him fight to his limit, then showing up at the end to exploit every last scrap of effort he gave. Makes me wonder, who's the master and who's the pawn here? Quite a complicated relationship you two have. Don't you agree? Tell me, Fry. Zebar whispered beside Frey's ear as the boy hung half-conscious. With great effort, Fry opened his eyes just enough to look toward German standing in the distance. He was still fighting against the overwhelming waves of pain crushing him. But even so, he held onto enough clarity to understand the situation and focus on German.